Great to see you for another Dub Zone Saturday. We are underway at Amy Park. It is 1v2 in the Liberty A-League with Western United hosting Melbourne City. Our ladder leaders have suffered back-to-back defeats after what was a near-perfect start to their first season, and top spot is on the line in their clash with Melbourne City today. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone, our interactive coverage of the Liberty A-League season. I'm Neve Owens and it is awesome to see you again for some more Saturday Arvo football. Stay in touch right throughout the afternoon. That hashtag, of course, is Dub Zone. And on that note, Kat Haddad has 100% pulled a Betsy Hassett on us. She's off at a wedding this Arvo, which gives us an opportunity to say hello back in the studio to Brianna Goodchild. Good to see you.
Hello. It's so good to be back. I mean, I've had some fun out at the fields, watching games. It's been absolutely just stellar, but it is nice to be back here and it's quite comfy next to Teo on the couch.
You are there next to the voice of the Liberty A-League, Teo Palazzeri. Hello, Teo.
Hello, Neve.
Always good to see you. And Teresa Polias, Sydney FC legend, former Matilda, is back in the studio with us as well. And what a time to do it. T, you've just been hovering there, haven't you? Waiting for Sydney FC to score 9 goals in 2 games and then march on back in.
Thanks, Neve. It's great to be back. And yeah, I'm sure Teo can agree that Sydney are in bright form at the moment.
Are you about to ask Teo about XG off the top of the show?
I'm not.
Teo, we have this game already underway at Amy Park this Arvo, and it is a really big one in terms of top standings in the Liberty A-League. Let's have a look at the lineups to begin with. Melbourne City unchanged for this clash with Western United today, but Western United, who had a shock loss midweek, they've made some changes.
Yeah, 5 changes midweek, 5 changes today. Jacqueline Savicki, the captain, comes back in. Amy Medwin and Alana Cern added to the defence. TJ Vlanich is back. Danielle Steer comes into the attack. Natasha Dakic and Alexandra Sinclair out of the squad altogether. 4 new faces on the bench. It was so disappointing for Western against Newcastle. They have held this game 0-0 through 27 minutes so far, but not a surprise they've shuffled the pack once again.
Yeah, a few chops and changes of late, and we did say we'd wait till this time in the season to see how Western would go. Look, they're still doing really, really well though, and today's a good opportunity to get back on track against City.
Let's have a look at the highlights so far from Amy Park, Teo, because there's been one clear opportunity 25-odd minutes into this game.
Yeah, and this was Chelsea Blissett starting today with that early ball to Hannah Wilkinson. You see there, Alana Cern was appealing for offside initially, and even though Wilkinson put it in the back of the net, the late flag did come up. Relief for Cern, who was appealing for offside while Wilkinson was running in on goal. And at the moment, Melbourne City have had 3 shots on target, 4 total shots, 1 shot only off target for Western United. So it means that City are on top. Not too dissimilar to last time they played, with the exception that Western scored in the first 2 minutes. This time, the game is following a similar pattern, but Western don't have the goal in the bank.
Let's have a look at the rest of the games that are coming up for you this afternoon on Dub Zone and right across the weekend in the Liberty A-League as well. It is a big round 14, match week 14. West United, Melbourne City already underway. Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Victory, the next to kick off. This one from Perry Park, and we'll of course bring it to you here on Dub Zone. And Teo, it's a big game for the Roar. They've got a game in hand and could really cut the distance to the top 4 with a win over Victory today.
And historically, Melbourne Victory, Roar is their bogey team. They've only beaten them 6 times out of 25 head-to-heads. They actually went from the competition's introduction in 2008 all the way through until 2014, having not beaten Brisbane.
So after a couple of losses on the trot, all of a sudden this top 4 on the Liberty A-League ladder looks a bit tighter, Teo, and I feel like that Premier's Plate race is well and truly on.
Yeah, and not just the Premier's Plate race. You look at Perth Glory, they've got 2 games in hand on Melbourne Victory. They're playing tomorrow. Canberra, Brisbane, they can still get into the low 30s to mid 30s in terms of points. And you look up there, Western, Melbourne City, Sydney FC, they're all still only in the mid 20s. So this is far from over if a team from 5th to 9th can put together a winning streak to end the campaign.
Is there any reason at all why you've completely ignored my Newcastle Jets?
Well, I think the Jets go to Perth tomorrow, and if they were to win, it'd be, for starters, their 4th win of the season, consecutive wins. I'm not going to say they're going to make a late finals charge, though. I do think they're just a little bit too far back. Probably Wanderers, they're right on the line. They have to beat Wellington tomorrow. Otherwise, we might have to say, again, it's a bridge too far for them.
I love how you threw me a bone there, and you're the ultimate professional, Teo. Thank you so much. Bri, let's have a look at what's been making socials this week, because ultimately we've got our Player and Coach of the Month winners in action today.
We certainly do. So you've, put your votes out there, and very excitingly, it is Western United who has cleaned up. For the month of January, we have goalkeeper Hilary Beale taking out your Player of the Month, and Mark Tacasso going back-to-back I was actually there in December to hand him his Coach of the Month award. He's a man of business. He took it in. And then he's done it again this month for January. So clearly, very good work to both of those individuals. And what do we think, team? Any surprises there?
I mean, Cat Smith ran it pretty close in the voting, but there wasn't, I think, a clear-cut Coach of the Month, mainly because even though Western dropped some points, the head-to-head against Sydney FC, they won. If Sydney had won that game, I think Ante Juric is Coach of the Month, no questions asked. But unfortunately for him, they lost to Western. So there was a bit of circle of dub, as they like to say, going on.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue that one. But funnily enough, I think Torcaso's lost the game every time he's won it. So it's a bit of a curse there for him. But in terms of Hilary Bill, she's had a great season so far. So no arguments there. She's been phenomenal in goals for Western.
Mark Torcaso is going to be like, stay away. I don't want it. Give it to someone else.
Exactly.
There's definitely pressure that comes with it. But look, another thing we've noticed on socials is Sam Kerr doing Sam Kerr things. For the second time this season, she has scored 4 goals in a game, and she wasn't even the only one to score. She did this for Chelsea when they took on West Ham, and the team won that one 7-0. So, woof, sheesh, we're all saying, because we want to see her take that goal scoring power into the Cup of Nations next week. Very exciting stuff. Obviously, we're going to see her representing our own country. And that leads us to our Dub Zone poll. Get amongst it. Hashtag Dub Zone. Get on the socials. We want to know who you're looking most forward to seeing play at the Cup of Nations. All right. Tayo's in early. He was like, there must be chids on the poll. And he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted rightly.
Well, she's winning. And she's winning.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, Tayo, you're on the ba-boom pulse. What does everyone else?
Well, my picks aren't exactly on the poll, but the 2 Claires, obviously Claire Hunt coming in, getting a call-up and a well-deserved call-up. And I'd love to see Claire Wheeler get some game time in a tournament mode. So that's what I'm hoping for come the Cup of Nations.
So hashtag Dub Zone. Get amongst it. Make sure you let us know where you're watching from, who you're cheering for, what you think of the poll and everything else.
Whether or not you agree with Tayo, ultimately. Just lead with that. Hashtag Dub Zone. Another interesting thing that jumped up on Instagram a little bit just before we came on air, Tayo, was from Shay Connors, it was from Katrina Gorry, and it was about the heat policy in the Liberty A-League and across the game. We'll see that game at Perry Park kick off very soon. We'll have a look at the team lineups in just a moment. But unusual to see players on game day take to their socials with a really clear message. We do know, of course, doctors give the go-ahead in this space, educated decisions are made. And we're seeing similar conversations in England, but almost at the opposite end of the scale with icy pitches across the country. It's a summer sport, Teresa, and it's an issue that we've tackled for some time, that you've tackled as a player. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into what it has been like for you and what you do during the week to prepare for what is undoubtedly hot conditions at times?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard. It's stifling playing in the heat. It's not easy to do as a player. I think in my time earlier in the league, I don't know that there was a heat policy, and as such, there is now, and it's one of those things at the moment. It's something that you can't control. You can't control how hot it's going to be. You can't control the organisation as a player. But what you can control is what you do as a player to prepare, for a game where it's going to be pretty hot. And that means, throughout the week, you're making sure you're hydrated, you're making sure you're eating well, and your body is top notch so you can perform at the highest ability that you can come game day.
Do you have really clear water intake levels throughout the week in the lead up to a game that you're trying to hit each day?
Yeah, I mean, you should always be mindful about, consistently sipping water. It's not always about measuring it, but you're making sure, you're not leaving it where you then guzzle a litre of water. That's not hydration. It's consistently, taking in that water, and food, is equally as important, and getting all the nutrients you need. And on game day, when it comes to replenishing and, taking electrolytes, hydrolyte, getting in at half time and keeping cool, and all those possible ways that you yourself as a player and your club and medical staff can help you manage it.
I, Tayo, like to stay hydrated on coffee myself. That's my approach to hydration. It's clearly why I'm not a professional athlete. Take us back to Amy Park because we're counting down to half time here, and neither side yet to find the back of the net and make it count.
No, and we just saw a corner there for Western United, their second of the game. Oh, some snoozing in the back there from Melbourne City, and the centre of defence has been a real issue for them. We know that Naomi Chinema is going to be out for another 7 or so weeks, so she's in a battle against time to make the finals. But T, this is the sort of communication issue that we've highlighted a number of times this season. Again, ball over the top, and that's Katie Bowen. That's, player that's had 100 caps of international experience there, not able to keep the relationship with Sally James sort of on track.
Yeah, I mean, Katie Bowen, like you said, experienced international footballer, but we've seen it a couple of weeks in a row. It's been, the hands out sort of thing, signalling to Sally James to come out and get that. And in that zone just then, I don't think it was Sally James's responsibility. I think Bowen was a bit casual then and should have taken care of business there.
We've been talking, and especially on socials, there's a lot of Cote Rojas fans.
Yeah.
But I mean, the drop-off between when Cote was in the attack for this team and since she's not been there has been noticeable. But I think it's multi-layered. They've made changes to their midfield too. We see young Kira Myers is on the bench today. Carly Ross back and still hasn't quite got back from injury to the point where she can play consistently. So they've actually signed Myers as a emergency sort of injury replacement train-on during the week, and she's straight onto the bench. So it's across all divisions of this Melbourne City team that speaks to their decline. I mean, there's still a chance to go top of the ladder today, but there's a reason they're not blowing sides away like they were earlier in the season.
Look, they're still a phenomenal team and they've got so much depth and should be winning games still. But yeah, look, in terms of Cote Rojas, look, she's a puzzle piece that just fits with the City team. At the start of the season, she's just... with players around her and Policina and Galich really combine well. They don't even need to communicate. It's just that there's a flow about it. Whereas I think with Hannah Wilkinson, she's a different type of player, and the team need to adjust to that. And I think that highlight earlier saw them doing that, where they played Wilkinson in behind. That's her game.
The stats there. Look at the XG per 90 is probably the biggest one. I mean, they're creating less than half of the chances, quality chances on goal, that were there when Cote was in the team. And Wilkinson has scored goals, and she scored a match-winning goal in a game. She's still picking them up points, but they just don't look as persistently menacing as they did when Cote was there.
No, I don't think the team's readjusted quickly enough or well enough to having different personnel in the likes of Hannah Wilkinson in there.
Now, I don't want to make our viewers feel old, and plenty of our viewers are...
Forget the viewers. I'll feel old.
Plenty of our viewers are young, and plenty of our viewers are younger than Kira Myers, so feel good about that. But Kira Myers, 22nd of June, 2007,
Wow.
15 years old.
Goodness.
If she comes off the bench today, she'll be the first 2007-born player to play in the A-League Women's. Don't forget, this competition started in 2008. We're getting closer and closer to the first player in the league to be born after the W League started, which is exciting. But also, it's a great bit of work from Melissa Barbieri, because even though she's out injured at the moment, Kira Myers, Southern United was Mel's State League team during last winter. She obviously saw Kira Myers training there. She would have been, 14, turning 15 at the time. So we stay with Rihanna Policina here, and Western United are able to defend. But yeah, great work from Melissa Barbieri on the scene, grassroots in Victoria, not even in the NPL, in the second division.
Wow.
And now young Kira Myers has been a train on all season and gets her opportunity on the bench today.
Apart from making me feel old, Teo, because I did graduate high school in 07, that's awesome that, they've found young Kira, and, well done to Bubs for, being out. And this is what we need. We need recruitment at all levels, because there are gems out there. So that is awesome and scary at the same time.
And there is the first goal, and Melbourne City get their reward for a good first half, and it's Letitia McKenna who finds the back of the net. It's her first goal in Melbourne City colours, and, that is exciting, because Melbourne City have had real control of this game, and that's a good strike down into the bottom corner, beating the Player of the Month, Hilary Beale. And we saw Rihanna Policina there, who was looking so dangerous around the penalty area. And you see into space here, this was Briley Henry, I think, with the assist. And that's a really nice shot on the turn. Such a good finish into the corner. Goalkeeper not getting anywhere near that.
That was very hard to do, and such a great finish from McKenna there. And she's been getting a lot of minutes lately, and that's her reward for it, and she's paying off.
Well, we were speaking about the changes to this Melbourne City team across every division, but McKenna is now up to 13 appearances for the season. A lot of them were coming off the bench, but that's a really nice goal. And it'll be a huge confidence booster. It's hard to believe. Today is the 62nd game of her career. She's only 20.
Wow.
She's only 20. She could have gone to the Under-20 World Cup in Costa Rica, but, on form perhaps wasn't one of the top selections for that midfield. But she's fought her way into this team during the course of the season, and that's I think it's a credit to City, but also a credit to the season getting a bit longer because, of course, if it was last year, this would be the last round of home and away.
Nearly over.
Thanks for coming.
And she hasn't played any minutes at such a young age. But credit to Letitia McKenna. She's obviously been patient, kept her head up and just worked hard for it. And it's paying off now for her, which
It goes
is awesome.
to show what confidence will do as well. It's obviously getting a few more minutes under her feet there and just that confidence to really nail that into the back of the net.
Western are in behind, and that was a big decision there. The cut across rather than the shot on goal. I guess it's TJ Vlanich, and she doesn't have the strongest right foot. But in that situation, you're thinking surely you take the shot, but instead the attempt to cut it across is cleared away. But Western need a response here. They're heading for 3 defeats in a row, T.
They are, but
Come on,
we've
Western.
seen them behind, I think, 2 or 3 times, and they don't lose confidence. They're in a game for 90 minutes plus, and we've seen them come back and win games, more often than any teams can.
Those
We see-
goals either side of the break can have a big impact,
They
though,
can,
can't
yeah,
they?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
on the cusp of half-time, all of a sudden, Mark Torcaso's half-time speech looks a little bit different. And from a City perspective, when they were pushing forward, they've got the lead that you felt was coming.
Well,
Yeah,
great
they
save.
do.
Sorry, great save here from Hilary Beale, and that was to deny Melbourne City taking a 2-0 lead. So Western, they almost need to get to half-time here. As much as the game is opening up and becoming end-to-end, I feel as though that might favour Melbourne City. And Briley Henry, probably credit to Sydney Cummings there for cutting off the angle and just making that shot a little bit more tricky right at the last.
Yeah, and look, the ball was still bouncing a bit. In that situation, you really just need to get it flat on the ground and to line up your shot. But yeah, Western United in need of halftime, as soon as possible. But yeah, it's amazing how a single goal can change a game. So look, it's only 1-0, and they'll go in, get some instruction, and come out firing.
Is it championship minutes? Is that what they say, either side of the break?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it can kill you when you concede just before the break. But if you're chasing a game, coming out and scoring just after the break's the best thing that can happen. So that's what Western United will be after.
We don't have simultaneous kickoffs for you this Arvo and Dub Zone, but we do have 2 games of football, and the other one has just kicked off at Perry Park. It is Brisbane Roar up against Melbourne Victory. A big game in terms of those positions in the top 4 as Brisbane Roar look to make their move at this stage in the season. Tay will have a look at team lineups in just a moment's time ahead of this one as well. But a couple of big games in terms of positions on the ladder today.
It is, and Brisbane, credit to them for winning last week, but they won with 0.26 XG and 1 shot on target. So it was actually the 3rd lowest XG for any team in a game this season, by far the lowest for a team that actually won the game. They did not create much against Adelaide. Opportunistic goal from Jesse Rashart. Adelaide's struggles to score are well known. But T, it wasn't the most convincing performance against Adelaide. It's a results business, so they'll take the 3 points.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm intrigued as to whether they give us a better performance today than last week.
Yeah, and hopefully a win like that where you weren't the dominating team. Certainly Brisbane weren't in that game. They didn't create too much, but they came away with the points. And a win like that can certainly boost you. And this week playing Victory, this is the team that they definitely are chasing. So it's a good fixture for them today.
I mentioned before that Victory went from the competition's inauguration until 2014, 6 years, not able to beat Brisbane. And it's reflected Brisbane 13 wins head-to-head, Victory 6 out of 25 games. You've been on the other side of that, though, Teresa. You've been in situations where a team is your bunny. It doesn't matter if you're... inevitably, it doesn't matter if you're going to Adelaide or Adelaide's coming to you, or in your case, perhaps Newcastle or Perth as well, were teams that Sydney FC were dominant against. And Victory, to be honest.
I think Newcastle were a bit of our bogey team, to be honest.
Right. Well, Victory was one that you very rarely lost to as well.
Yeah.
Is it just another game in this situation, or do you have to take the threat of the opposition seriously if you've never actually experienced a defeat to them before?
No, you should never discount an opposition. You never be complacent. That's
But there's something
the
about the
number
navy
one
blue.
rule.
There's something about the navy blue that just sits well with Brisbane Roar.
Yeah,
That
but
was
look,
the Coach T answer, wasn't
the
it?
composition of the league has changed. Let's not forget that. Both teams are different to what they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So as a coach, I know that any coach I've ever had would say, not to be complacent and, to approach the game with, the team's goals in mind, and you never take anyone easy because, I've seen when me in a team have done that, we've lost games. So, the experience in that speaks for itself.
Is it there in the back of your head as a player, though? We'll see Sydney FC take on Canberra United this afternoon. In their last 5 meetings, Sydney FC have won collectively 17-0. 1-0 all draw in that time. But surely the Sydney FC side heading to McKell Park, which is a tough place to play generally, they've got a bit of a spring in their step because they know that they have had the wood over Canberra in recent years.
Yeah, look, I don't know, I can only speak from my own experience, but I don't think that the history of the results would even come into the team talk at all. Wow. In preparation during the week. If anything, you're looking at your last game and their last game. You're not even really focusing on previous results. Perhaps if you've never beat them, you can use that as an underdog kind of, pick me up and motivation. But you certainly, if you're using it the other way around, there is a risk of becoming complacent that any coach would not want.
Like so many stats, Teo, great for us to talk about. The players don't actually care.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can see that difference between fans' perspective versus an athlete sometimes, where it's, you've got to focus on your last game and the next one.
That's
where
right, yeah.
we love to see the bigger picture.
Unless
the
you're the underdog.
storylines.
If you're the underdog,
narratives.
like, City, we hardly ever beat City in their early years. And that was an underdog thing for us, that we wanted to get ahead of them. If it was the other way around, we never went into a Newcastle game going, we've beaten them every time. And, it never.
You cannot tell me on the plane to Adelaide in the early days of the W League, you weren't thinking more about where you're going for coffee or dinner after the game than the game itself.
They're professionals. They're focused.
Not at all. You just don't take any team lightly, and that's my experience of it. I never approached a game like that because you need to perform as well as a player. You've got your own. That's your profession. You need to be professional about it. So, yeah. And I didn't drink coffee then, Teo. So.
That's a true answer.
I do now. So
it sounded like the halftime whistle. Perhaps it wasn't, Teo, but we're approaching halftime there at Amy Park, and it's the City with a lead.
Confirmed. So just the one goal. Letitia McKenna with a great strike in the 40th minute. We did see earlier a disallowed goal for Hannah Wilkinson for offside, but it's Melbourne City in control at the moment. Western United still looking a bit toothless at the moment. I just wonder what curse was put on their attackers here, Teresa, because the shots have dried up. 2 shots, none on target. By contrast, Melbourne City, 10 shots, 5 on target, and they're dominating possession, as you would expect, 60% to 40%. So at the moment, it's one-way traffic, and unlike last time these two played, there's no Chloe Lagazzo to come off the bench for Western United.
Yeah, look, they have gone through a bit in the last few weeks, Western United. So, they've lost Jess McDonald, and Chloe Lagazzo's not around at the moment. So, there's probably, they're lacking probably a bit of guidance possibly and confidence. So it's just a little bit of a hiccup for them lately. But I think they'll come out of it. I really do.
We did have a tweet on that front, I think, Brie, asking about Chloe Lagazzo and her return from injury.
We definitely did. And I did see that one come through. I don't have it with me in front of me.
Keep using that hashtag Dubzone throughout the Arvo, because we would love to hear from you guys. This one from Mulchi, loving Dubzone on a steamy Saturday Arvo. Have we had any more word on Chloe Lagazzo, Teo? I thought I heard she was carrying an injury. Is she far away from a return? McKenna is growing into some player, coming into her own in City Blue. What do you have to say?
So the Matildas are keeping a very close eye on Chloe Lagazzo. It is now a plantar fasciitis foot injury. She's come back from the ACL, had been rehabbing that, but has now picked up the foot injury on top of it. This is, week-to-week sort of management. At least it was for Western United. Now they've kind of eased back off again, and they know that the potential return to the NWSL is looming. I think the question now is, has Lagazzo played for Western United for the last time, and is her target now squarely on the World Cup? I don't think Western United are sweating on Lagazzo to be fit for them to win points for them in the short term. I think they signed her with the World Cup in mind, and they are managing her with the World Cup in mind, rather than, for example, this afternoon. And great to see Mulchi watching Dubzone as well. He does great work in the New South Wales NPL.
Unusual for you to give the New South Wales NPL a shout out, Teo, but we appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Teo.
Impartial as always here on the Catch Multi. Great to have you tweeting.
Look at you two. What a stitch up.
Teresa, it's such an interesting place for Chloe Lagazo in her return, and a tough one. She's returned from such a big injury. She's worked so hard to get back to where she is.
She has.
And plantar fasciitis is a niggler, isn't it?
It
like
is.
It's hard
and
to
you
get
said
rid
it,
of.
Neve. She's worked so hard to get back, and often that causes secondary injuries to an injury coming back from. So plantar fasciitis is a horrible one to get rid of. It's really hard to shake, so you really have to manage it carefully. I have experienced that before, and not fun at all. But I don't think Western United have relied on Chloe Lagazo. I think they've always had in mind that they are managing her. They don't know how long they'll have her for, so they certainly don't rely on her. She's great to have though, in their artillery and to come off the bench. But I don't think that's Western United's issue.
I wanted to ask about the sort of balance of priorities between national team and club, because you were still Sophia Huerta's teammate when she came back to Sydney FC, but said, the national team's only going to pick me as an outside back. American soccer. And she insisted on only playing that position. And this is when, in her stint at Adelaide, she was playing as a number 10 and just ripped the competition up. And was, I still think, in terms of a single season, the best international other than Fishlock that we've seen in one individual season in this league. But she insisted on only signing on the terms of playing in that position. So, and it's rare to see a top team, a championship chasing team, bend to sort of the demands of a player to such an extent. So what was the dynamic like there, knowing that you had this asset and this weapon, but only on terms that would help her get into the US women's national team?
Look, as long as it's communicated well in advance and planned for, I don't think there's an issue with that. You want to have a player like Huerta in your squad. And at that time, I know, she communicated that with Ante well in advance. That first season she was with us, she played at the right back in the right back role, and she did well. The second season she was more of an attacking player because I don't think it worked out. I don't think she did get back into the national team in that position. And when she came back, she did play a more attacking role. But I don't see anything wrong with that. If it's going to help the team, if it's going to help the league, I'm all for it.
It's a difficult balance, though, for players, isn't it, who ultimately have that big goal in mind, the World Cup, in this case for Chloe Lagazo. We had Mel Andriata on the show last week, and she spoke about the importance of game time from a Matilda's perspective in the lead up to the World Cup. So for Chloe, as she's looking to work her way back and to get those game time minutes back up, is it then a really tough one for her as she returns to the US? Presumably under contract and maybe has absolutely no choice in the way that plays out. I don't know.
She may have no choice. And look, World Cups don't come around very often, and these are things you dream of as a kid. And, in a year like this year, you do need to prioritise the national team because you're about to go to a World Cup. And that's a hard thing to do. So, we don't know what the contractual obligations are for Chloe, but I would imagine that, her club in America want her back as well for pre-season. So she may be tied to that, but certainly anything you're doing this season as a player, if you're in contention for a World Cup, you're thinking about that and you're making sure that you're ready for that.
And from a Tilly's perspective, we absolutely want to see her back and at her best for Australia before that World Cup as well. Take us to Perry Park now, Teo. We've got Brisbane Roar up against Melbourne Victory. We haven't had a look at the lineups for this one yet, with 2 games underway this afternoon, kicking off at different times. What changes have you got for us after Brisbane Roar's 1-0 victory over Adelaide last week?
So Roar completely unchanged, starters and bench, but Melbourne Victory have brought Tiff Eliadis and Catherine Zimmerman into the starting 11. We see Zimmerman back starting for the first time. She obviously came off the bench to be the game changer against Western Sydney last week. Melina Ayres is back from her hamstring injury to sit on the bench. Great to see Ava Breedis back as well. Maya Markovsky and a rested Leah Privatelli out of the team. But I think Victory are maybe showing their hand for when Alex Chidiac does have to leave T. There's been some speculation that maybe Beattie Goad goes into the middle and plays as the central attacking midfielder in the Chidiac role. I think it's going to be Ava Breedis that they bring in as a straight swap so they can leave Beattie Goad dominating out on the left. There's the form line of the two teams coming into the game. But what would you do after Chids goes and who you need to put in that sort of creative role for Melbourne Victory in the middle of the pitch?
Tough question, Teo. But
well, that's what we're here to do.
We're here for it. But look, what I would do, I wouldn't move Beattie Goad. I think she's been too electric on that wing. You got Breedis and Lana Murphy as well. So I reckon those two are the option coming in, and it's great. 2 big inclusions of Zimmerman and Ayres change things as well. You need that experience out there. But yeah, I'm going to back the youngsters and let them take the reins there.
I want to talk about Jeff Hopkins. We just saw him on screen there, and one of the reasons that Queensland Roar and then the Brisbane Roar were so dominant in the early years of the A-League Women's is because he was the coach. And now, of course, he's gone down to Melbourne Victory and he's won championships there as well. I refer to him as the CEO of women's football at Melbourne Victory because he does everything. Like
he does, yes.
And it's certainly not from a control freak or a management point of view. It's more out of a necessity point of view. It's, hang on, if things aren't being done, I'll take responsibility and I'll do it. So it's not just coaching the team, it's a lot of logistics and all of the management and sort of organisation around the squad. And he's built assistant coaches and he's built greater capacity into the club, but none of it happens without Jeff Hopkins. He took them over when they were a wooden spoon team, and I think they are still the only team in this competition to have won a championship after winning the wooden spoon.
Wow.
No one else has done that. So I'd refer to him as also the MVP, the most valuable person. But I think the CEO of women's football is a snappier title for what he does at Melbourne Victory.
I love that. And anyone you meet will tell you how great a person he is. And you just said it. He goes above and beyond for the women's game. And we all love Jeff Hopkins. Me, I've never been coached by him, but I love him. And I don't even know him that well, just, as an opponent. But, yeah, he's the things he does for the women's game is phenomenal, and he's a great coach.
If he was on the open market, which team do you think would slap down the biggest offer? Which team sort of needs a Jeff Hopkins figure to come in and sort of rethink? I'll let you mull over that.
Let me mull over.
I say the Newcastle Jets, if money was no object.
Well, I mean, the
if
Jets,
we could afford
they've
him.
just, let a coach go, and they are after a coach. They have a caretaker coach in the role, and I'd be throwing everything I have to get Jeff in if I were the Jets. That's perfect answer, Neve.
The trouble is, I'm not sure they have that much to throw.
Yeah, look, it'd be hard to lure him away from Victory. He seems pretty comfortable there, and he's given the reins to do what he needs to do there as well. But, if they can get Jeff, he'd be fantastic anywhere.
And I think for new fans of the league, what happened was the state federations used to run the clubs. Football Federation Victoria ran the Victory. They actually won their first championship while being run by FFV back in 2014.
That's right, yes.
But then Melbourne City came in and Melbourne Victory started running their own women's program. But they inherited it right when Melbourne City came in. Joe Montemurro left. A bunch of players went to Melbourne City because they were first to act. And Jeff Hopkins walked into a team that was a wooden spooner. He actually won the wooden spoon in his first year and had to basically build it right from the ground up. And that's a very hard and long-term project to do.
It is, and he did it quite soon, quite quickly. And it was tough for Victory when City came in because they took a lot of their big guns and they threw a lot of resources into the team, which left Victory shell-shocked, and they weren't able to quickly sort of recover on that. So hence why they got the wooden spoon, that season. But for him to turn things around, and now they're continually battling for championships and premierships is quite phenomenal.
As we see a drinks break there at Perry Park, warm conditions in Brisbane this afternoon. We'll see regular drinks breaks, and that run from Katrina Gorry, Teo, just before the drinks break. It's the Mini doing many things, isn't it?
Well, it's not quite one-way traffic. I mean, that's a very good save there from Casey Dumont to keep the scores at 0-0, but that's actually the only shot on target so far. Might be about to change here. Larissa Crummer was in, and the ball was flashing. And you see there Dumont diving in at the feet. Have I been had by a highlight? I think I have.
You have. It happens so rarely. We need to celebrate it when it does.
And then that's the shot one from Katrina Gorry. But it's 4 total shots, only the one on target. Melbourne Victory, duck eggs across the board. Possessions 50-50. In terms of territory, though, passes in the final third, 23 for the Raw, 9 for the Victory. So the ball is largely living down at the left of screen at Brisbane's attacking end. But Melbourne Victory, they need basically Alex Chidiac and Beattie Goat on the ball here because they're not creating anything at the moment, Teresa.
They're not. Brisbane looked really energetic today, and perhaps the heat's working in their favour against the Victorian team.
Well, can I just say, I would like to remind everyone that I am a Queenslander. I bleed maroon. I'm a Raw fan. And this is a good looking start, an opening bit for me. I'm excited with what I'm seeing. I like the fact we are holding possession. And I hope we can keep that for the full game.
Now, this is something we've talked about. Strategic fouling in midfield. Guess who's getting the strategic foul? Alex Chidiac.
There you go. Yes, definitely.
I'm just going to check.
Not an accident.
Well, I'm going to check if she's still the most fouled player in the league. But you're a central midfielder, Teresa. Were there players where you just decided, the only way to stop them is strategic fouling rather than trying to win the ball off them.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not doing, going overboard and,
But
going
were there any
studs up,
individuals
but
that stick in your memory as ones
yeah,
who...
Tamika Butt
Yep.
was certainly one against the Raw. Alan Stajic would come to me and say, you do what you have to do to
Is this a penalty? I think this might be a penalty. Beattie Goad was the player fouled.
It is,
It's
yeah.
a penalty kick. Well,
Wow.
they've done no attacking. We called for Chids on the ball. We
We
called for
did.
Beattie Goad on the ball. We said there's fouling going on.
Things happen when they get on the ball.
That's a tough call, though. I reckon I wouldn't mind seeing that
Let's
a
see
few
it
more
again.
times. Castia Lind, the defender, came in there on Beattie Goad. So it's the snapping of the heels from Holly Palmer, more so than Castia Lind, the defender, coming in, I would say.
Yeah, look, I don't know if Lind actually got contact on Beattie Goad then, but yeah,
I think it's against Palmer.
a bit of a clip at the heels there. Well, I mean, a clip's a clip.
Well, we saw
from
Chids
behind.
go for power last week. Do you go power or placement? Call it, Teresa.
Placement.
Okay.
Placement.
Let's see what Alex Chidiac does. Scored the winning penalty against Western Sydney Wanderers last week. Hensley Handcuff is a tall, intimidating goalkeeper that is trying to fill as much of the goal frame as possible. Huge moment at Perry Park in this game. Alex Chidiac, can she hold her nerve from the spot? Yes, she can. And Teresa Polias was on the money because she went for placement over power. It's 1-0 to Melbourne victory.
50-50 there, but lovely penalty. Calm, cool, collected from Chidiac.
That was classy. That was really
classy.
classy.
Hey, we talked it kind of, we said, where's Beattie Goad, where's Alex Chidiac? Well, there they are.
I said it. When they're on the ball, things happen. And yet Beattie Goad sort of set that one up and Chidiac's finished it.
Opposite of the commentator's curse, hey? Commentator's blessing.
There you
Well,
go.
I think that's right. Well, it's also, we spend, 2.5 hours here every week. We're starting to...
hopefully
We're,
preparing.
Starting to pick
we're
up,
starting to
follow
notice the
along.
trends and start to anticipate things
That's
just as
right,
they
that's
appear.
right,
Yeah.
It's always such an interesting moment for a goalkeeper, isn't it? That moment before the penalty kick is taken, and we've seen throughout the Men's World Cup recently from a Socceroos perspective, but that different approach that goalkeepers take in that moment. She very much committed herself to one side there.
She did, and I don't envy the task.
Such a tough one.
It is a really tough task, and every goalkeeper has their own way about
Equaliser.
it.
Raw level. They weren't behind for long.
Wow.
What a response from Raw. Exactly what they need.
Well, the congratulations there coming for Ish Norrie, Shay Connors. I'm not across the goal scorers. We need to see this again. Ball went into the penalty area. Connors on the turn. That's a great finish. Getting it past Casey Dumont. And Shay Connors' second goal of the season for the American. We'd been waiting for the goals to start, but now maybe that's 2 in 3, so she's starting to get on a bit of a scoring streak.
That was a fantastic turn there from Connors. She brought the ball down while it was bouncing, which is really hard to do, and placed it beautifully to the keeper's left. So no chance there, and exactly what the Raw needed. So really good to see.
A bit of cutting edge, though. That's what they did need, because they were the ones creating all the chances. They'll feel as though that Melbourne victory goal was completely against the run of play, and they were barely behind for 2 minutes.
And the perfect response, Teo. Last week against Adelaide, they weren't great, but they got the win. So it's amazing what a win does to a team. It just seems like their energy is so up today. So it'll make for a very interesting run home in the competition.
The second half is back underway at Amy Park as well. Western United up against Melbourne City. It's 1v2 on the Liberty A-League ladder. 4v5 in our other game this afternoon. So a couple of really big games for you. But it is Melbourne City, Teo, with the lead heading into the second half.
And Western United with all of the onus on them to do some creating. We've got a corner now coming up straight back to Perry Park because this game has opened up. They say goals change games. Well, this one has definitely sprung to life as a result of that first goal. Raw with the response, and now we see Beattie Goad standing over the corner in at the near post. And it's going to be a second chance for the ball to be swung back in. Hanging it high to the edge of the box, though. And it looks as though Raw are going to clear away with the 8 of a foul.
Yeah, and interesting there. Raw were away. Oh, it's 2 players down. That's why the ref's blown the whistle. But not her best deliveries there, Beattie Goad. But it is early on, so she'll find her range for the next set pieces, I think.
We're back at Amy Park now. Western United are up against Melbourne City. The second half only just underway. This one kicked off a little bit earlier on this afternoon. Not just 2 games at once, Teo, but 2 games at different parts of their games for you here on Dub Zone the Savo.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued as to what the substitution strategy, if any, might be, T. At the moment, neither team has made a change. Melbourne City dominating possession as you might expect, but again, not as fluent or creative as they have been in the past. But Western United, Have you been in situations, T, where your team does get on a winning... Oh, what a giveaway! And that is Sally
Holy
James
smokes.
gifting Hannah Keane a goal. And the issues at the back for Melbourne City, I hate to sound like a broken record, but they come up every week. And this time, Sally James will just be needing to wipe the slate clean and get that out of her head because it's 1-1 and Hannah Keane gets a gift.
Yeah, and Hannah Keane, this is the one player, if you make a mistake, she will be there to pounce on it. She's done it time and time again. Today's no different. Sally James, yep, just not enough on that pass.
But why is Emma Checker calling for that pass, T?
I mean, look, there's two issues there. It's the angle from the centre backs. They're probably too close together. Checker should be further out. But the execution there from James, there's two sides to that. And Hannah Keane, she was waiting. She's there, pounce. She's always trying to pounce on things. So, yep, she got on the end of that. And make no mistake, she will finish those.
Double figures for Hannah Keane. First player to 10 for the season. That golden boot race is starting to heat up.
It's heating up.
Madison, I mean, if Madison Haley was... I know that on Keep Up this week, there was a feature about her relationship with her dad, Charles Haley, the 5-time Super Bowl winner. And it is, of course, Super Bowl week over in America. City are looking for a super response here as the ball is blocked away. But she must be licking her lips at the prospect of playing Canberra later this afternoon.
Oh, for sure. And if anyone watched Sydney last week, they were electric. Madison Haley, her work rate is exceptional. Her and Hannah Keane,
I saw them.
Yeah. So she's looking so dangerous.
What was it like watching her in person? Because we can watch it on the TV, but in terms of how she covers the ground, and we saw Courtney Vine with a great breakaway goal.
Oh yeah,
that sort of straight line speed of those players watching in the flesh. What was that like last week?
Yeah, this is my biggest thing. It's one thing to watch online, but when you go to the actual grounds and you see when you are just meters away from these players how they fire up. It's just unbelievable. Like, the sheer speed is just, almost incomprehensible. So, yeah, it was stunning to see them bring form. And I just found that Sydney did feel like they kicked it into a new gear. Previously, earlier in the season, watching City, they just seemed clinical, very clean cut. But, they were chasing their tails against that Sydney side that game.
And the work rate from Sydney was exceptional. I think Madison Haley deserved more than the one goal, in my view.
Western have nearly shanked that in for an own goal. Sydney Cummings there, throwing the head back, looks as though it might have been offside and may not have counted there. But, yeah, you see a bit of stress going through that Western United defence at the moment. Yeah,
looking stressed there a bit, Sydney Cummings. But, look, it's game on. It's 1-1. And, she's had such a phenomenal season so far, Sydney Cummings. So she'll get the girls going. And
look, nice tweet here. We've got oofed for that one.
Definitely
that says everything it needs to, doesn't it? Honestly.
Is this considered a derby, Teo?
I think in the men's, maybe not, but they've played each other in a grand final. I think in terms of building a rivalry unique to the A-League women's, the first head-to-head, it was the real contrast in styles, the early goal for Western. City came back. Amina Rekic was still fit at the time and was ripping the game up. And then Chloe Lagazzo came on and more or less single-handedly won the game. So I think in terms of a budding rivalry between these two, especially if they then go on and meet in a final, I actually really like things that are kind of unique and special to the A-League women's, that just because it's not the case in the men's when the two teams play, it is the case in the women's league. It really is a great point of difference, even though they wear the same badge. So I'm hoping that this is the start of a derby or some sort of heated rivalry between the two teams. Not least because Melbourne City's women at least do, as we see a massive pile up here, they at least play in the southeastern suburbs. They play in Casey. Western United. Oh, Danielle Steer is firing up against Katie Bowen.
We're getting into derby territory here.
Oh, we've got a diplomatic issue here between Canada and New Zealand. And wow, that is spiteful. I wonder there exactly what could have been said to set off that war of words. Danielle Steer is very new to this competition. It's Katie Bowen's first year in Australia as well. It was Emma Robers who was the initial target of the grabbing and the grappling. Steer comes in. Caitlin Torpey gets cannoned into Robers. And then I think Bowen here is arguing that it's Steer's fault that Torpey was the player who was pushed in, and Steer is not taking a backward step. Hey, you asked if it was a derby.
There you go.
We just got our answer.
I think it's become a derby now after that incident. I'm not sure who was to blame for that. It just looked like just a whole bunch of clashes.
This is a classic you be the ref, isn't it, Teresa? I mean, where do you think the foul is? Is it Steer's fault for pushing Torpey into Robers?
Well, Torpey, launched into her, but I think she was pushed. by steer. So if anything, it should probably be a City foul there, in my view. But it's a very hard one to ref in real time and come up with the right call.
And especially when you see the City player hit hardest go down like this. So it's hard to then put the foul on them. And this was the other thing that being live at games really shows you how brave these players are when they go into these tackles. It's one thing to see it on the screen, but to actually be there and see the speed, see the force, and
hear
see
it.
the collisions and hear it, it's a different level. So, you know, I hate to see players go down like that.
While we've got this little break here, I want to revisit something we talked about earlier. Who is the most fouled player in the league? It is Alex Chidiac. She's been fouled 27 times this season. A few surprising players. They're central midfielders. Lucy Johnson, 24. Bethany Gordon, 23. Tash Rigby from Perth, 19. So they're the only 4 players in the league that have been fouled more than 20 times this season. But Chids has drawn 27 fouls this year.
That's huge. That's a lot of time, you know, a lot of kicks and
It's a lot of
bruises.
kicks.
But she holds her own, doesn't she? And I love the way she just gets back up, doesn't complain, cops it on the chin, and still, you know, produces the goods. And she's such a key player.
And it goes to show how dangerous she is with the ball
So
at her feet. That players feel that is their only option to take her out. When you look ahead to the Cup of Nations and 3 big games to come from the
Huge.
Matildas' perspective, does Chids get some more game time?
She has to. She's just been in such red-hot form. And not only that, she's so durable as a player, and that's a characteristic.
She's had to prove that, hasn't
Yeah,
she?
she has. She has. You know, 27 fouls, and you know she hasn't missed a game. I don't think, and so that durability is something hard to come by, and certainly something Chidiac has. And you just know she's available week in, week out, and that for a coach is so valuable. So I really hope to see her get some solid game time come the Cup of Nations.
We had a good tweet on Chidiac before. If we can pull that up, it's just disappeared off the screen, but it was talking about what a key player she was. So if we can pull it up, yep, here we go. So we've got this one. The fact that Chidiac has scored penalties in back-to-back weeks should seal her a spot in the Matildas squad for the World Cup. So, you know, it absolutely should. Like, she is just a stellar performer who's been able to show it. We even saw Labosaurus as well, hashtagging Dubzone, going, how good's is Chids? Like, Chids is a talking point.
She is, and for all the fouls she gets, she's still, you know, so crucial in a game. And, you know, she assists goals, she scores goals as well. So what a player.
It's that creative playmaking.
Creative
skill set.
playmaking, you know, goal scoring. She's got the whole package, really.
How much store do you put, Teo, in the fact that she's scored goals from the penalty spot 2 weeks in a row? They're not beautiful goals from open play that we'll celebrate in highlights reels, but they are still a crucial part of the game.
Well, not least because, let's not forget, the Matildas, if we had a pretty awful history with penalties and penalty shootouts. Think of the 2016 Olympics. You know, we had the shot to win the shootout against Brazil. The shot was saved. That was Katrina Gorry, and then Alana Kennedy had the penalty saved, which knocked us out of the 2016 Olympics. 2018 Asian Cup final, the game's 0-0. We win a penalty. Kaya Simon didn't start, so Elise Kellon-Knight, who had only scored, I think, 1 goal in something like 95 caps at that point in her international career, took the penalty. The penalty was saved. 2019 World Cup, we go to penalties against Norway, and we lose the penalty shootout there as well. So I think, yeah, a composed penalty taker can make such a difference. And we were talking about it in the first half of the A-League women's season with Melbourne City and how they were filtering through all their different penalty takers. Here's Alex Chidiac now taking that penalty. And if she's the go-to penalty taker, I think back to that 2018 Asian Cup. If Kaya Simon had been on the field, Kaya would have taken that penalty kick in the first half. I mean, there are many good arguments to start Alex Chidiac. I think penalties is kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a 1%er when it comes to, you know, team selection, and if it's up, you know, 2 players, you're deciding on 2 players, something like that could come into account, or it could be a late substitution in a, you know, finals game of a tournament. So it's good to have that in your artillery. It's good to see Chidiac stepping up, nerves of steel, and being able to take penalties and score them. It's something that we definitely need at the national level.
And building that confidence organically through the Liberty A-League that then come tournament time, Teo, is so important.
Yeah, and I think the Cup of Nations is going to, you know, group stage simulation. It's going to give us a good idea of how maybe the squad will be rotated, but I don't know. Yeah, I go into every international break just hoping Chidiac gets picked. I mean, it's taken so much hard work from the media just trying to campaign for the obvious to get Chidiac into the team.
Surely she's in that.
It feels
I love how much credit you're giving us in the media for that. Like,
all
Chids,
us.
yeah, you do a bit of work yourself on the field. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
you go
but
okay,
Chids,
Chids,
if
but
a player is toiling unloved in obscurity,
Yeah,
they need
Nash.
advocates to go into bat for them.
Absolutely. She's been advocated for a long time. Although she deserved it, it wasn't happening. But surely she's, a definite when those squads get picked now. Surely she's earned that right.
Bit more here. Briley Henry's now been booked for that foul on Sydney Cummings. And I think back to the game against Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, Briley Henry was lucky not to get sent off in that game. I think she committed 2 yellow card challenges in that match and didn't get booked for one of them. And then Sydney Cummings here has been cleaned up, and so Henry's now on a yellow card. So that's something for Dario Vidičić to think about as the second half goes
and look,
on.
That's been one of the main talking points online. People going, gee, some hard tackles coming in today.
And if she's prone to re-offend as well, she might need, Dario to give her some instruction there just to calm down and not do anything silly, or a leader on the field needs to make sure, that she doesn't repeat that.
Now, we are, when we get a break, going to have another look at the push and shove as well.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't a physical altercation, and I don't believe anyone got booked out of it, but it really has added an extra layer of tension to this game. As we have another look here. So this was the aftermath, and it was Danielle Steer of Western United and Katie Bowen. The finger pointing starts there. Bowen is still giving it to Steer, and Steer just bounces back up, and that is great leadership from Angie Beard to get in and keep them separated. But they weren't separated for long.
She got away from
They wanted afters.
It's funny watching Angie Beard chase her around, but I think, Bowen was giving it to Steer for perhaps shoving Torpy. Was it into Checker? But I'm not sure who it was into. But
Now,
it was funny.
This league is a very collegiate league. A lot of players have been teammates in the NPL, or they've been teammates at A-League women's level, and there's obviously a lot of moving clubs. Just how much of this gets left on the field, Teresa, and how much of it lingers an incident like that? Because I made the point of mentioning that it's 2 fairly new players to the league. These are 2 players that don't have pre-existing friendships, relationships, mutual teammates. They're just total combatants in a situation like this, aren't they?
Look, I'm sure after the game they'll laugh it off. Maybe, once they shake hands, I'll have a few words about it and say, maybe apologise about the incident. Who knows? Or they might, take it to heart and this grudge may continue. We don't know. But
the derby continues.
in my experience, not a lot gets taken away from the field. But, the next time they meet on the field, certainly it could come up again.
White line fever, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
City are in here. This is a great opportunity for them. Oh, it was 2-on-3 for a moment, but that cut back in shows too much of the ball to the defence, and they're able to get it away. Angie Beard doing so there.
It's
so
sparked the game, though, hasn't it?
it's a big half an hour coming up. I mean, even a draw is a good point for Western United today, just because it stops Melbourne City from leapfrogging them. Never mind if they were to come back and win.
I think also having lost 2 in a row. In their first season in the competition, getting into the back end of the season when maybe their depth will be tested, surely stopping the rot and getting a point at least out of this one.
Especially against City. That's a big takeaway if they can do that. And it's a hard fixture after 2 losses, isn't it, to come up against a team like City. But so far they're holding their own. They're in this game. Anything can happen at this point.
Well, that was also another tweet that came in. It was by Paste Sam Man, I think. Oh, no, Paste's Man. And he said, were the Jets just that good, or were Western just that bad? And the whole thing was, he was saying, who's really at fault with that, recent loss for United. But here we see them coming back now, and they've got a chance to really, prove that they just dropped that one, but they don't have to keep dropping it.
Yeah, look, it might have been a bit of both in that game. I don't think Western were very good against the Jets, but in saying that, when...
This will be offside here. Almost certain the attackers run offside. Oh, good save by Sally James. Here's the follow-up. Oh, I cannot believe the flag didn't go up, and Hannah Keane has blazed that over the bar. TJ Vlanic was away through the left flank. It looked like she'd run offside for all money there, but that was a great shot. Good save from Sally James, and that's why we say goalkeepers, they mentally wipe the slate clean. They don't worry about the last mistake. They worry about the next save they're going to make.
Exactly, Teo. But how did Hannah Keane get to that ball first? She was She had no right to get to that ball. You had 3 City defenders much closer to Sally James's save there that should have been first to that.
I mean, it wasn't offside. That would have counted.
No way,
That should have
nowhere
been
near.
2-1 Western
It
United.
should have been. Hannah Keane normally, absolutely eats those up and definitely scores in that position. So City very lucky there.
Jacqueline Savicki started this game and has now gone an hour. And this is so encouraging for Western United because she's going to be part of the Women's World Cup, fitness permitting, playing for the Philippines. They're going to be playing against one of the host nations, against New Zealand. And she has been, we spoke about Lagazzo having the eye on the World Cup. Savicki, very similar situation, but Western always had a long-term plan to get her back playing. But this is now the most number of minutes in a game she's played this year.
Yeah, it's really good for her. And again, credit to Western. Their player management's second to none. They don't rush anyone back.
Oh, I don't know. Sydney's is pretty good.
Sydney?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Jada Wyman's out for 6 weeks. And
yeah, but we're talking about Western United here and Savicki. They haven't rushed anyone back in a World Cup year. And being the newcomers in the comp, it's easy to get ahead of yourselves and, not listen to the advice from national teams because a lot of the time, the communication lines aren't as open. But the credit to them for managing their whole squad.
At the risk of giving you a real opening to talk up NPL Victoria here, Teo,
There we go.
it has been something that's worked so well for Mark Tuakaso, hasn't it? It has felt like, even in a debut season, he has a deep enough squad to continue to rotate players and rest players when he's needed to week after week. We'll see whether it lasts for the season as a whole, but so far it feels like it's worked.
I mean, there is, I think, the drop-off in both the Wanderers loss and the Newcastle loss, to come back to that question we were asked earlier, is largely personnel related, though. I mean, against Newcastle, they had Natasha Nakic playing at centre-back. They had Julia Sardo playing at right-back, similar to the game against Western Sydney, where they conceded goals that they had not been conceding up to that point of the season. I do think, though, the effect of Gary Van Egmond, as much as the game against Canberra, they conceded 3 in 7 minutes. It was a bit of a struggle. They didn't look, great until those goals hit the back of the net, and then obviously they were beaten 3-0. Against Western United, the intensity of their pressing, the intelligence, and as the coaches and players would say, the trigger points of when they go and press, the verbal of Van Egmond from the sideline was undeniable through the course of the game. And also the players' adherence to what he wanted. We regularly heard him shout forward, and then if a player turned and played a back pass, he would scream forward, and he would sound pained at the sight of a back pass, and Newcastle not putting just continuous pressure onto that Western United midfield and defence. So I do think it is a classic case of the new manager bounce, and that's why I'm so intrigued to see how they go against Perth tomorrow.
And I didn't need to be there to hear that voice, Teo, that Gary Van Egmond voice and frustration. But yeah, that new manager bounce, it happens time and time again where, a new manager comes in and all of a sudden the team, for players that they may feel that they're fighting for a spot again, it's like a clean slate. So, yeah, it could be a rejuvenated Newcastle coming up. Western
looking a lot more fluent on that build there, and it takes a very good defensive challenge to steal the ball away. And that was Leah Davidson, one of the quiet achievers of the Melbourne City team, winning the ball back off Emma Rovers. But that was, again, the sort of passage of play we don't normally see from Western. It was 4 or 5 short passes linking up as they build an attack. Normally it's hit the channels, out to the space, let the athletes run after the ball. But that was something a little bit different there.
That's right, Teo. And now, the back end of the competition, perhaps they've realised they need to diversify their game a bit. If they want to stay on top and finish as high on the ladder as they can. They're probably being found out by other teams a bit now with their consistent style. So they're probably needing to change things up a bit.
Here's a chance now for Briley Henry shooting, but didn't get the power behind the shot to trouble the reigning player of the month, Hilary Beale.
Let's head from Amy Park to Perry Park now, where we're nearing half-time in this clash between Brisbane Roar and Melbourne Victory. It remains 1-1 as we approach the break, Teo. And both teams, even more so than usual, will be oh so keen not to share the points today, to take 3 points out of this, particularly for the home side.
Yeah, I mean, a draw, it's not as good as a win for Victory as far as pushing up the table, but as far as pulling up the drawbridge on the chasing pack,
yes,
a draw is a really good point for them. However, Raw, 7 shots, 3 on target. Victory, 2 shots, 2 on target. Of course, one of them was the penalty, though. and they've created next to nothing other than the penalties. So it happened live in front of us here on Dub Zone. This is probably, nearly a 2-1 lead, but that's only their third shot of the game. And Hensley Handcuff, cool as you like, goes and has a drink. And now's probably a good time, T, to mention that Hensley Handcuff was called up to the US Women's Under-23 team this week. And we were speaking about Sofia Huerta earlier, American players that have come to Australia for game time to play at this professional level. Hensley Handcuff has been rewarded handsomely for her great form for the Brisbane Roar. That's
amazing, and it speaks volumes about the A-Leagues, and it's great that the US national teams, have that under-23s available pretty consistently as well. So props to her. She's had a great season so far.
It's an age gap that Australia's trying to build capacity in. I mean, we saw an under-23 team go to a tournament that previously we'd sent the under-20s to, the AFF Championship. So the more camps and the more time that age range of players who are too old for the under-20s but maybe aren't ready to move overseas or aren't able to attract the interest of a professional club overseas, just that they get more football that's at a different level to the NPL, especially in the A-League Women's off-season.
It's critical, Teo. It's something missing in the system at the moment, and the quicker we bring that in, and not just a tournament here and there, it needs to be pretty consistent. It needs to happen
feel like a national team.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many players in that age group that need that, and when transitioning to the senior Matilda's team, if you've got that experience under your belt of tournaments, of being in a camp setting, it makes that transition into the first team smoother. So hopefully that's something in the pipeline for the game. But yeah, we need it ASAP.
So cementing those pathways.
Definitely, and just making the transition smoother. It's not an easy thing going into camp. It's quite daunting.
We don't want goat tracks.
As
we
a
want
newcomer.
cemented walkways.
So, you want a smooth track for young players stepping into the national team.
8 minutes of additional time because of 2 drinks breaks per half at Perry Park. So still plenty of time for Victory to go on the attack here. This is Jessica Nash, one of those players that in the near future is going to fall into that category of needing an under-23 national team to play for. And Victory are starting to fancy their chances from outside the box here, Teresa. Maybe they are getting a little bit frustrated. We've seen Nat Tatham and Elise Kellon-Knight, 2 former Queenslanders, well, still Queenslanders, but 2 players that used to play for the... Always a Queenslander, yes, thank you, Brie. That used to play for the Brisbane Roar, firing from distance here. So maybe starting to reflect that Victory, even though Hensley Handcuff is probably the last goalkeeper in the league that's going to be beaten by a long shot, they're still going to try their luck.
They are, and if you saw how crowded the box was then, Brisbane certainly are, sitting deep and making it hard for the Victory to walk the ball in as they'd probably like to. So, yeah, it is resulting in some frustrated shots from distance.
Such an interesting point as well with the talent that Brisbane has created over the years as well. I remember back in the early days of covering the W League as it was then, KK, such an integral figure in that Brisbane Roar side, and a player you couldn't actually imagine playing anywhere else at the time. She was so Brisbane, and Brisbane have created so many of those top players over the years.
And it's amazing how the league's changed, and most Matildas predominantly in the early years came from Sydney and Brisbane, and that's how that rivalry started. So Brisbane have certainly produced a lot of talent. Some of it's still there, but a lot of it has gone on to other teams, and KK is one of those.
I just wanted to, as we get towards the end of this first half, drill down into the 2 key combatants in the game. Katrina Gorry, her first half, 26 touches, 21 total passes, 62% pass accuracy. Alex Chidiac, 20 total touches, but 15 total passes, 13 completed, so 87% pass accuracy. They're not hugely prolific on the ball. I mean, if you're making 13 passes a half or 16 passes a half, it's one every 3 minutes or so. So they're not as ever present in the game. But that's probably also because both teams have strategies set up to try and nullify
both players. Yeah. And probably not enough touches that they'd like, but again, both teams are trying to nullify them. But it is about quality, not quantity. So, that passing accuracy, 87% is pretty good from Chidiac. 62% probably not where Katrina Gorry wants it to be. But then again, you look at the type of passes she's trying to thread through. Are they high-risk balls and things like that? But yeah, certainly if teams can get them on the ball a bit more, that might, be the difference between who wins and who doesn't.
Well, right on cue, here is Katrina Gorry buzzing around at the edge of the box, trying to find the right pass though. Knocked out to the left, and this is Talitha Kramer. And good defending there, coming across from Catherine Zimmerman to shut that down and stop a dangerous ball being swung into the box.
And on another note, those two players probably feel a high sense of responsibility as well, which at times can make you sort of do too much as a player and play unnecessary risky balls and lose possession. So there's that aspect of it too. But that was a much simpler play there from Gorry, and Brisbane kept the ball and get a corner out of it.
Let's wait and see the corner here coming up. Holly Palmer, who gave away the penalty for Victory's goal. So no doubt we'll be feeling the chance to redeem here. Swings it in, cleared away.
Good delivery there, nice and flat with good pace. And there was a game where Holly Palmer, I think she scored an own goal, but then made up for it, scored her own goal back. So, yeah, she'll be looking to get Brisbane on the score sheet again.
Well, the Western Sydney Wanderers take on Wellington Phoenix tomorrow in the A-League Women's, and as we approach half-time at Perry Park, it's a really great chance for us to check in with Kat Smith, the head coach of the Western Sydney Wanderers. Kat, thank you so much for joining us on Dove Zone today. It is great to see you. Can I start with a really broad one and ask you how you were finding the experience, your first season as head coach in the Liberty A-League?
Yeah, great. I think it has its challenges, and obviously that with the start to our season, but given the results and performances we had through January, I think things are looking a lot brighter, and we finished the season off nice and strong.
Looking at those challenges then and the challenging start to the season, how did you go about keeping morale high within the Wanderers squad and having the girls at the ready, understanding that win was not far away?
Yeah, I think it was quite perhaps obvious internally was we were probably the wrong side of luck for a little bit there. And, the focus for the girls was really to maintain, I guess, the vision on the performances, not so much. So I think about there, I guess, how games can swing either way and how goals obviously change games. But in terms of our overall performances, in terms of building to something towards the end of the season, I think that was our focus. More than anything, the credit goes to the girls for their ability to be resilient and turn things around as they did.
Hi, Kat. It's Teresa here. Just talking about building on things. In recent years, it's been a bit of a challenge for the Wanderers to retain and recruit players. I'm just wondering, is that something you've pre-planned for? Is it on your mind? What's happening in that department?
Yeah, so obviously I've been watching all afternoon. Congratulations to all on a job well done. But there was talk around, I guess, with my time at Melbourne Victory experience where Melbourne City came in and obviously we had to rebuild the club and finishing there with wooden spoon. So I think having that experience in the league, having a mentor like Jeff Hopkins do what he did, I think I'm obviously privy to, decisions that are made and what impact that has on clubs and seasons. And hopefully I've learnt enough from that to hopefully build a good future for the club here at Western Sydney.
Kat, I think you've used 23 players this season, and it was only last game that you had a totally unchanged squad and you now had some game-to-game consistency. And what is the reason that you needed to shuffle the pack to such an extent? I know there was the injury to Bode and you've had suspensions through the season, but 23 is a lot. Talk us through your thought process as you came to a best 11.
Yeah, a few of those are forced, obviously, through injuries. There was that one to Malcaceres early on against Sydney, obviously suspensions to Sheridan as well, and then you don't envisage you lose someone like Tess Bode so early on in the season. So look, some of those were forced, but obviously with a team that had close to 80% new squad or players to their roster, it did take time to find, I guess, a formula that was going to work in this league and obviously would bring out the best in the playing that we have.
You've shown a lot of trust in young Gemma Ferris the last two games to start her at 18 years old after, I understand, being elevated as a train-on. What has it been like essentially putting a player in the deep end? I know having Claire Hunt as your centre-back partner means you've got a good guide out there, but talk us through your thinking behind basically putting an 18-year-old in the centre of defence and the instructions and the coaching that you gave as well.
Yeah, well, don't forget 23. So in terms of experience and years. They're not too far apart. But look, for Gemma, she's been such a consistent performer at training and through our practice games. And obviously, any opportunity she's had to play her role, whether at training or in those games, like I said, if anything, you need to back your players. More often than not, they surprise you.
And last week, with Ash Wilson departing the Jets, the conversation around sort of being an A-League women's coach and being sort of a 12-month of the year employee of your club and having a bit of job security, continuity year to year. We heard you speaking about squad planning and what Jeff Hopkins did. Where do you stand on that? For example, are you willing to let us know? Are you coming out of contract at the end of this season? Do you know what your future holds? And what do you think the right road ahead is for A-League women's coaches?
Well, continuity, yeah, it's important, and the club have put faith in me to hopefully steer the ship right, and I signed a 2-year contract. Obviously, that could change if, they need to make a business decision. But in terms of having the opportunity to coach full-time, I'm fortunate to be aided by some scholarships from the AIS. But that's something that needs to be addressed, as you've all rightly spoken about, going forward, especially with the extension of the league.
Kat, we've spoken a little bit about that Gen 32 scholarship program here on Dub Zone. We had Ray Dower on, and the importance of mentors and learning from other sports as well within that program. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into what it's meant for you as a coach, outside of that ability to invest full time as a head coach, but also the different learnings and learning opportunities that you get through the Gen 32 program?
Yeah, well, we've had came down during the week to, just observe training and, likes of him, and obviously Tom Samani there as well. But with Alan, he just gives another perspective, a different perspective. So it's nice to hear, I guess, an overview from what they've seen in our training environment. But also, this coming week during the international break, I'm taking some time to go visit the Rugby Sevens in Sydney and watch some of their training sessions. And for me, what I hope to take out of that is, I guess, their preparation for tournament mode. And that's something, obviously, I won't have in a season and day-to-day work environment at Western Sydney.
Hi, Kat. It's Brianna here. Thanks so much for coming on. And I've just got a final question I'd love to ask. How proud are you of Claire Hunt?
Very, very proud. We spoke about that today at training, obviously, before we play tomorrow. After that game, a lot of players actually go off to international duty, whether that's with the young Matildas or their respective countries. And I think we've got a total of 8 players that go off. And I think what I wanted to reflect on was, the contribution that for Claire, that her team have given to provide, I guess, high standards and environment for her to push herself to new levels and to obviously get that recognition and to be called into the Matildas for the international window. So, look, a former teacher might say across the categories of a player, person and an athlete, she's A+ across the board.
Kat Smith, thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone this afternoon. Good luck against Wellington Phoenix tomorrow, Arvo.
Thank you. Keep up your great work.
Kat Smith, the head coach of the Western Sydney Wanderers, joining us ahead of the Wanderers clash with Wellington Phoenix at Wanderers Football Park. That's 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. You can see it on Paramount Plus and 10 Play, of course. And so good to hear that insight from Kat as well about that ability to invest full time in her head coaching role. And I love that element of the program that exists where they learn from other sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that that program's available. And it certainly assists Kat Smith in being full-time for the time being. But yeah, certainly job security for coaches and the resources coaches need definitely needs to improve.
We're still at Amy Park, Teo, where Western United are up against Melbourne City. It remains 1-1. There's about 10 minutes left to play. How do you see the final 10 minutes of this playing out? Can Western United once again pull the rabbit out of the hat late?
I think we're going to get some peaked up here because look at this ball over the top. Hilary Beale has come charging out. And then that was, I think, Julia Grosso there trying to chip it past the fellow American. And look at Beale just absolutely shouting at the defence there. Carly Johnson's coming on here for a bit of energy off the bench for Western United. I'll run through the subs, but first, the numbers. Melbourne City have had 20 shots, 10 on target. XG 1.73. Danielle Steer is coming off for Carly Johnson here. Western United, 6 shots, 3 on target. Possession is still 60-40 in favour of Melbourne City. Other subs, Letitia McKenna, Melbourne City's goal scorer, came off for Daniela Galich earlier in this second half, and Adriana Taranto was subbed off for her twin sister, Mel Taranto. Western there making their second change. And they've got a very young bench, Melbourne City. They've got Isabella Ricardo, Darcy Malone, and also Kira Myers, the potential first ever 2007 born player, to come off the bench, whereas Western United still have Julia Sardo and Franny Iamano. I'm not sure we'll see either of them unless there's an injury or if they need to waste time. So at the moment, City's still going with 60% possession, creating a lot more, starting to really pepper the goal of Hilary Beale, and I wouldn't be surprised if that actually suits Western, because they'll be looking to hit on the counter-attack.
They will be looking to hit on the counter-attack, and I hope you've talked peak dub into existence, Teo, because it'll be a great end to the game here. City with, a free kick in a good area for them. They'll be looking to get Hannah Wilkinson, Emma Checker on the end of this. So is that Policina on the ball?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, who's great at set pieces. So this is a good opportunity for City.
So Policina drifting it to the penalty spot where it's calmly headed away by Alana Cern, and then the follow-up is sent high. So when we say, there's been 21 shots now, that is a shot. The stat's misleading. This is why we look at things like XG, because it puts the quality of the shots you're taking into a bit of
Fair
context.
enough. I'm glad that XG does take into account the quality.
Like that would be a 0.01 if Grosso is lucky. I mean, one in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000 from there go in.
Yeah, and look, you do need to assess the quality of the shot, because 20 shots, when you hear it like that, it sounds like City have absolutely dominated, and Hilary Beale's, diving everywhere for saves, but it's not the case.
And so Danielle Steer coming off, Carly Johnson, the youngster, coming on, has a bit of an unwanted stat. She actually has now the highest XG of any player in the league yet to score a goal this season, and she'll be desperately hoping to score that first A-League women's goal and get the breakthrough on a day like today. And that's a great pass from Emma Robers. Here we go. Carly Johnson right on cue, off to the races. She's a left footer though, so is she going to cut in and use that left foot? Here's the shot. Shouts for handball. The referee says penalty. Carly Johnson, super sub, has made an instant impact, and Western United are going to the penalty spot.
And she was umming and ahhing whether to shoot, and she's probably so happy that she took the shot there, earning her team a penalty for a handball. Here she is, cuts back. She gets her head up.
What do you reckon? Penalty?
Yeah, that's a penalty. Handball.
So Julia Grosso is the player that is the offender. Look, my fantasy team in shambles.
It's a tough one because
it was really about.
It was from close range.
Oh, they've put up the centre-back, Sydney Cummings, to take the penalty. Now, if you remember back to the first time at Amy Park, it was Hilary Beale who saved from Rihanna Policina at this end of the ground.
Wow.
When Melbourne City had the chance to take a 2-1 lead. I said peak dub is coming.
Can Sally James repeat that?
Oh, Sally James, this is your moment to make up for the mistake earlier in the game. This is a huge, huge moment in the season. This could potentially define top 2. It could define the Premier's plate. Sally James standing slightly off centre here for the penalty of Sydney Cummings. Have they done some homework into where she's going to go?
Oh,
puts it in the side netting, and Sydney Cummings makes it 2-1 to Western United.
That was a great penalty. It was actually almost straight run up, which when you look at it, it's quite dangerous because goalkeepers can read your hips when it is a straight run up. So no, but she did really well there, Sid Cummings, to go the opposite way that Sally James dived.
That is her 4th goal of the season from the centre of defence. Of course, she's on the books of the San Diego Wave, but they're not going to recall her. She's going to stay for the entire Australian summer.
Goal-scoring centre-back, Teo. That's why she's in my team.
Well, and of course she's dual citizen. She plays for the Guyana national team.
Nice.
And has American citizenship, but this was a great penalty.
Is she the regular penalty taker, Teo?
I don't know if they've had a penalty this season,
okay, wow.
actually.
Wow.
Maybe Hannah Keane wasn't feeling it today.
Because I'm surprised Hannah Keane didn't step up given she's in that Golden Boot race.
Well, they're on the march here, TJ Vlanich. And again, this has swung the pendulum completely. We were just saying that Melbourne City were creating. They're the ones on top. Now they have to chase the game.
But you also said, Teo, that Western United like that. And their style is transitioning when they're up against it. And they've done that. They did exactly that. And it's paid off for them yet again.
true sportswomanship is what you do when you're down to your last buck, or when, there was talks of them slipping. Well, this is how you respond to that, isn't it?
And
this
it's
is how
the
you
perfect
respond.
team to do it against as well.
Melbourne City are going to the bench, and they're going to bring on Darcy Malone here. And who's she replacing? Just haven't been able to catch the LED there. Come on, Shab Roshan, best fourth official in the league. It's Emma Checker.
Change.
They're taking a centre-back off and bringing Darcy Malone on. So I imagine that means they'll be going to a back four instead of the back five. They play a back three with two wing-backs. So I imagine Malone will go straight into midfield, and this means that they'll be maybe leaving the door slightly ajar for even more Western United counter-attacking.
They will, but that's the risk that you've got to take at this point. You're 2-1 down. There's only a matter of minutes to go. You need to throw everything you can at it, and that means sending as many numbers forward as possible. So, yeah, we're in for a bumpy ride home, I think.
Oh, my gosh, I'm excited.
My memory's failed me here. If they have had a penalty this year, Hannah Keane was the one to take it. I've gone through the rest of their goal scorers this year.
I'm just surprised
none of them were penalties.
Step up there, but if it's not your day, credit to her for picking the next most confident person, which obviously was Sydney Cummings.
Well, ever since the goal, the ball has lived down at Western United's end of the field too. So just in terms of relieving the pressure that their defence was under, this will be an absolute godsend for them. And Melbourne City, they now need to come up with a spark just to get a share of the points. And Sydney FC, I wonder, T, on a day where kickoffs were staggered, I know back in the old days they didn't broadcast every game, so you'd be relying on Twitter, or you'd be relying
Twitter.
for text messages
Watching
from people
games
at the ground.
on Twitter is fun.
Well, hey, we've all been...
Just refresh the feed every
we've all
5
been there. But,
seconds.
I mean, how closely, if you were in Sydney FC's position of kicking off at 5, I mean, it's 4 p.m. now, so they're probably about to go out and do the warm-up.
Yeah.
Would you want the assistant coach telling you the score of what goes on?
Nah, look, you're in game mode now. If you're on the team bus, you're probably watching it on your phone just as a football fan.
But I mean, you weren't, but you would be now.
Oh, would be now, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, look, no, I don't think they'd be reporting on... maybe they'd tell Ante, if anyone, just, out of curiosity, but definitely not the team. They're in their own game mode. Sydney are a team that don't worry about others. They're focused on themselves, and that's what works for them.
Well, we're having fun watching this game.
We are.
We're going to tick down to the last minute of regulation here. Brianna, what's been the reaction to Western United doing it again?
That's right.
Behind?
Well, we've got people going off on #Dubzone, as they should be. One from John and FC Shammer. He's going sudden turnaround for Western United. And we had a nice big chunky tweet up there as well, if we can recall it. But it's exciting to see how much hype this is turning around, because winning this can really set them in a good round. So we've got Joey Lynch here heading into this round. If games were decided after 45 minutes rather than 90 minutes, United would have been 6th with only 3 wins. This team does business in the second stanza.
That's a great stat.
That is, thank you.
Joey Lynch bringing the
What
goods.
a stat. That just goes to show the team that Western are and the resolve that they have. Phenomenal.
And you can always rely on Joey Lynch to be, 1, watching Dubzone, and 2, sharing his knowledge with
legend,
us.
yeah.
I would be shocked
Absolutely
if he's not
love.
watching Dubzone from the ground.
From there.
That back pass is dangerous. Melbourne
here we
City,
go.
and here's a great chance through the right channel. Wilkinson ran a bit wide, though. Really opened up the chance for the defenders to cut off the angle there, and so Hilary Beale not even drawn into the save. Talk us through that one.
Look, that's Hannah Wilkinson's game to a T there, running at players, getting in behind, but she made it hard for herself there with the touch out wide, making the angle quite narrow there, and the shot really hard to finish, as you saw.
She fought for it, though.
That was a great chance, though.
It was.
That was a great chance.
And had she kept going straight, possibly just cut across the defender in front.
Oh,
different
7 minutes.
story.
7 minutes of stoppage.
Oh, there's plenty of time here.
Everyone just take a nice deep breath. Plenty of time.
Bodia had a tweet for you a moment ago as well, Teo, about Western United's other penalty taker this season.
It was the corresponding game, of course. Chloe Lagazzo
yes.
scoring the penalty.
She stepped up, that's right.
And again, when in that context of Matilda's penalty takers, if Lagazzo was to make it to the World Cup, and if we're in a penalty shootout, it already means we're out of our group. That's progress. It means that we've held one of France, Germany, or England in the quarterfinals, potentially. Or actually, we might get China or Denmark, so you wouldn't want to go to penalties against those two. We'll spank them. But I mean, if we're in a penalty shootout, I mean, Lagazzo's another player that is so mentally tough. She's exactly the sort of player you want over a spot kick.
Exactly, Teo. It's not always the best player, technically, or on the field that day that is necessarily the best penalty taker. So if you've got players that are confident and have strong minds at the time and aren't afraid of the pressure, let them take it.
Now, this is a big moment here. Franny Iamano is coming on, has been sparingly used in recent weeks, but is going to come on here in stoppage time. It looks like it was TJ Vlanic who was coming off, and got to say, credit to TJ. Ever since giving me a roast here on Dub Zone, she's taken her game to the next level and has actually been a standout for Western United this season.
She's been a very experienced standout for them, a player that they've needed to step up. And she's done her job very, very well. But another change for Torcaso, possibly a defensive one, just to tighten it up and hold the lead.
Well, comes straight on and commits
a smart foul.
Well, on that occasion, that was Angie Beard committing the foul. Angie Beard, she's a very cluey player. She's always very aware of the game state, isn't she?
Oh, and that's something that, is hard for young players to understand.
Well, because I don't think it was always the case with her either, to be honest. I mean, she was a very sort of natural athlete and sort of loved to run up and down as a wing back for Brisbane Roar when she was playing there. But I think ever since her move to Victory, her ascendancy into the captaincy of that team, she's now spent time overseas as well, playing in Denmark. Look at the great leadership there as well.
She's a real leader.
But I think that developing that game sense, that's something that can only come with experience.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn that from other leaders as well. And now Angie Beard is the leader, showing the next generation, what to do in this situation. In this situation, you're holding on to the lead. If you need to foul to stop, an attacking opportunity, you foul.
We'll get back to the other game later, but 30 seconds into the second half, Alex Chidiac gets fouled. So you're not missing anything. Alex Chidiac is still getting fouled in the A-League Women's, the number one player winning fouls. Now, there's some gaps here. There's some gaps opening up. Sorry, Brianna, you go.
I was just going to say, we did have confirmation from Joey Lynch. He is watching from the ground. He's come back and said that, Teo. He said he's right behind Dario and he looks miffed. So,
well, I can tell Dario was miffed after the first head-to-head between the two teams.
When they're winning 3-0, so what's different now?
All right, so Melbourne City, half of stoppage time has expired. Look at that, great hustle, pressing from the front, catching Caitlin Torpey here. And that is the energy of the sub, Franny Iamano, coming on and making her presence felt.
Yeah, and it was kept in really well there by Torpey.
Now, Iamano is an interesting case. She played for Victory last season, but she was a Melbourne City train-on before that. So it's had to really persist to get in the door and get a full contract. She's 22 now, and this is only her 9th appearance. So most of those, this is her 6th appearance of the season. She only played 3 as an injury replacement for Victory last season, but she was a City train-on before any of that. So I think, again, we had, not to totally go off on a tangent, but we had the discussion about one-team towns last week. If Franny Iamano is from Adelaide or Brisbane, it's not in the league. Doors closed at one club. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Whereas she has bounced around the 3 different clubs in town to get herself a contract.
Yeah, and one club town, is that what you call it?
One team town.
One team town. Yeah, look, it's great that the introduction of Western's given her that opportunity and not just the opportunity, but she's taken that opportunity and made sure that she's now getting minutes, which is great. So Torcaso's trusted her to go on in this situation and do a job for the team.
And it's just a shame we won't get to see Kira Myers here, I imagine. She's going to be left as an unused sub, but still, there's a long history. There's probably a great deep dive into players who sat on the bench and never got an appearance in the A-League Women's. It's not a small group. It's probably up to 25 to 30 players now. Many of them would be goalkeepers, but of players who have at least made it to the bench of an A-League Women's team.
Well, is this Kira Myers' first appearance on the bench?
Yeah.
Which for her is an experience in itself on a game day. It's huge for her. So
I mean, I'm a big Carly Rossbacken fan. I hope she's okay. I hope she's back soon, because it's been frustrating to see her come back, look off the pace, and have to drop out of the team.
It has, and City's plans have probably been worked around having her available a bit more than she has been. So hopefully for Rossbacken, she's back as soon as possible for City as well.
Do you hit this on goal, or do you go to the corner?
She'll go for it, I think. Oh, no.
Down to the corner.
Smart play again.
Down to the corner.
From Western United. I think she originally was going to go for it, and someone must have said, what are you doing? There's a minute to go. Just
Brianna, call it. Are we getting peak double? Are we getting an equaliser?
Yeah, I'm calling it. Yeah, let's go. Let's go equaliser.
Okay, you got 40 seconds. Let's see if Melbourne City can go end to end. This is
Here we
Darcy
go.
Malone
Oh.
hitting the pass on. There's a foul there. Alana Cern.
I mean, last week I was sitting with the Gullich family and, they're supporting their city.
Well, she started on the bench again today. I mean, did they have any insights into you as to why she's spending more time on the bench than starting?
No, they didn't. Look, they were really diplomatic about it. They just said, look, when I was speaking to her mum, she's like, as a mum, you're just so proud of your baby out there. You feel for her, but we couldn't be any prouder. And they obviously can't be any prouder now. She's been named in the Young Matildas as well.
That's great. That's the sort of parent you want to hear. Ball is cleared from the edge of the box. Western United, stoppage time is up. Whistle goes. They've done it again.
Wow.
Western United, the comeback queens of the A-League Women's.
Phenomenal.
I called them the team of destiny back in round 4 after they beat Adelaide, and after a week where they have gone down to the depths, beaten, point blank by Newcastle, they have come from a goal down to beat Melbourne City and breathe life back into that race for the Premier's plate.
And the start of the game, we were quite worried for Western. They looked shaky. It looked like, they might go down today. And we did say, though, that they are a team that can come back, and they've done it yet again. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Oh, you go, Neve.
It's just important to note the position on the table coming into this clash. So we had 1v2. We had the fact that Western United were on 27 points, Melbourne City on 25. A win for Melbourne City, and they got the early goal today.
They did.
Would have seen them jump to the top of the table. So for Western United, a new side in the league, to hold on to top spot today is so massive.
It's massive, and I think if Western lost and Sydney win, they would have dipped to third from, being on top for all that time. And the pressure they were under today, to come back against City, it's unbelievable. I'm speechless.
Yeah, their emotional journey to see them go from underdog to top dog to, the comeback queens.
Comeback
roller
queens, all
coaster,
right.
aren't they?
They've been phenomenal.
What was Joey's stat? They'd be 6th if results from halftime with a ladder.
They'd be out of finals.
They'd be out of the
This
picture.
is it. This is crunch time. This is coming in clutch. This is showing that
It
it's
is.
not a fluke, and they
Not
are
at all.
showing that there's a reason why Mark has taken out best coach 2 months in a row.
Yeah, I tell you what, vindication for
Yeah.
Torcaso, yeah.
Yeah.
As a playing
Maybe he will
group,
want it next month.
as a playing group, do you start to build confidence that as a unit you have that ability to win a game from any position
Oh,
because
for
you've shown
sure.
yourselves
Yeah.
that that's exactly what you can do?
It is so morale boosting to come from behind and win one game, and they've just done it game after game. So they obviously the belief is there in the squad, and that shows time and time again. So full credit to Torcaso and his coaching staff and the playing group, because they're the ones that are continuing to bring it on game day and do it in any conditions against any team. So that's phenomenal.
Remarkable. We will cross to Amy Park shortly for all of the reacts from Western United and Melbourne City. A big win for Western United, who remain top of the Liberty A-League. Let's check in with our grassroots goal of the month now. And this is something we would love you to take part in as well. You can upload vision of you scoring a goal, copying some of your favourite Liberty A-League moves, and ultimately there is $250 prize in each and every month thanks to Liberty on the Line. So let's check out the month of January. Grassroots Goal of the Month winner.
Who was just scoring some really outlandish goals. Went to the club and I just said, look, you got to sign this kid. And Craig did the rest himself, to be honest. He did it really tough in Melbourne. It wasn't easy. He wasn't earning a lot of money. He had to work another job. He was desperate to be a footballer. Craig's journey is, proof that when things don't work out, doesn't mean the door's closed.
Wisniewski on the edge of the box takes a long-range shot and beats a diving handcuff. And Wellington Phoenix, against the odds, have taken the lead at AJ Kelly Park. What a strike by Grace Wisniewski from outside the box to give her side the lead for the first time today.
So great to have you back with us on Dub Zone. 2 games of Liberty A-League action for you this arvo. The first one has wrapped up and it is Western United victorious over Melbourne City 2-1 in a cracking game of football at Amy Park. We're going to have a look back at the highlights. We're going to have a chat with some of the players as well in just a moment's time. We'll also take you back to Perry Park where Brisbane Roar are playing Melbourne Victory. That is a super important game on the ladder as well. We're at this point in the season, Teo. Still plenty of football left to be played, but all of a sudden it feels like there are some 6-point games out there.
Very much so. And I think one thing that the entire chasing pack will be really nervous to see is Western hitting 30 points today, because they know that the magic number for many of them is either 36, 35, or in Adelaide's case, I think it's 33 points. They can't get any more. That's if they win every remaining game. And so to see teams pushing up into the 30s, it means they're running out of chances to, even if they take care of their end, the front markers are getting too far away.
Yeah, as a player, you're doing the math, and I think Adelaide will just way off that and feeling the pinch at this point in the competition. Yeah.
Well, we saw Sydney Cummings step up and score a cracker of a penalty, the winning goal for Western United against Melbourne City today, and she's been good enough to join us from Amy Park. Sydney, thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone. Can I ask you to begin with, Western United's ability to come back late in games and clinch all 3 points is remarkable. How much confidence is there within this side?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to fight. We had some great leaders. Jess was obviously here in the beginning. Chloe's been here this entire time. And so a lot of it just comes from drive, determination, and just knowing that the teammate next to you has your back. So put your body on the line for them.
Hi Sydney, it's Teresa here. You've been scoring me a bundle of points on fantasy, so thank you for that. Today's penalty was a cracker, well done. We weren't sure who was going to step up and take it. How did you talk us through how you got to taking the penalty?
Yeah, I mean, Collie did a wonderful job getting in the box, cutting in. She's very good at that. And to be able to force that handball, I think, is stellar. And I just think at the end of the day, like, I trust myself. I know I would be able to take it, put it in, and I just wanted the team to get that win. And so just having confidence in myself, I just felt like that was my moment and I was going to take it.
Sydney, we know you're here for the full summer, but are you in contact with your NWSL team? I mean, has this summer been a transformative run of games for your professional football career?
It's been really great to get back on the pitch. Obviously in college I was playing so much, and then the NWSL is so hard to crack into. I was really fortunate to get a chance with San Diego Wave, and I'm hoping they're watching, and I'm hoping that an opportunity comes up again in the NWSL at all. But honestly, just being here, being with these girls has been so good for my confidence, so good to just get back and play 90 minutes, be in a team environment. So we'll see what happens, but I'm really just looking forward to finishing top of the table with these girls here.
Now, you might have been not overly close to the action, but that incident where Danielle Steer and Katie Bowen were pointing fingers at each other, we had the big pile-up of bodies, and then there was a bit of afters. How did the cooler heads prevail? Because it really looked like the game was going to boil over at that point.
I think that passion is great on both sides. Obviously, you want Emma Rovers and whoever on the city side went down. You obviously want them to be healthy, and you want to make sure that they're okay. But I think that passion is really good. I think Danny just kind of started a fire in us. Obviously, Hannah getting that goal lit that fire, and then I think Danny just being passionate kind of helped us. But I think it was just a matter of staying cool, staying calm, staying collected. That was a great opportunity for us to work on some tactics, and so it was actually very helpful.
I mean, you are a new club. You're only starting to write your history from the beginning. Is Melbourne City your biggest rival based on the very, very entertaining seesawing games we've seen in both head-to-heads this year?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very good fight for the city. It's a nice little derby. I feel like kind of everybody looks at us like a rival, being top of the table. We look at everybody as an opportunity to prove ourselves over and over again. So I think it's a matter of opinion. Obviously, we love playing them. We love repping our city, and we're here to show that we're the Melbourne team.
Hi Sydney, Brianna here. And look, we did have a hashtag come through on Dub Zone. We actually had someone taking it one step further saying, Western United are Melbourne City's bogey team. It's been confirmed. Do you think you got in their heads rent-free today?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. We wanted to come in here and prove a point. Obviously, we dropped 2 really important games. Wasn't like us, and so we wanted to prove that that was just a fluke. We obviously can hang with the best, and this shows it.
You say you can contend with the best. You've lost 2 games in the lead up to this one, and we were talking before kickoff about the fact that top spot was on the line. As a playing group, did you talk about that in the lead up and the importance of 3 points against number 2 on the table?
Yeah, definitely. You can't ignore that. It was a fight for 1 and 2. It's not a fight for 7 and 8. And that was the message that Mark was echoing. It was just about not accepting second place to anybody. And that's what we did. And we were not going to let that happen.
Premier's plate, is it Western United's?
I don't know, I'll see.
Sydney Cummings, thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone today. Congrats
Thanks,
on the win and the penalty. It is awesome to have a chat with you.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Sydney Cummings joining us from Amy Park. Awesome character, great chat. And I love that in the lead up, they went, you know what? Top spot is on the line and it's ours.
Yeah, they're taking accountability and they're aware of where they are. They're not afraid of it. That was a fantastic insight from Sid Cummings.
The adrenaline's still pumping quite clearly there, T, through the entire interview, wasn't it?
You can tell. You can just see it.
You know that feeling? What's it like inside the rooms after a statement win? Because I'm back in your career, it would have been the games against Raw, the games against Canberra. Those were the ones for top spot on the table.
Yeah.
What was it like to come off on the winning team after one of those, especially in the circumstances with a late goal like that?
Yeah, look, in the winning team, you feel like you can go out and play another game. And you're just pumped, and that adrenaline's still pumping long after. Even you go to bed and you struggle to sleep because you're still buzzing. That you could just see it in Sid Cummings there. But on the other end, you know, all the hits you've got hurt a little bit more, and you know, certainly the adrenaline dips much quicker. But yeah, it's a great position to be in for Western United.
I really wanted to ask about the effect that coming to the A-League Women's is having, because we've often looked at it through, you know, the lens of an Abby Dahl-Kemper or, you know, a Sophia Huerta who's trying to take that next step to, you know, prove their case for the US Women's National Team. This is a player who's on the fringe of a contract. This is a player who's just trying to get a game, just trying to get on the field in the NWSL. They must be watching the A-League Women's, because they do. They follow this league, you know, quite studiously and diligently. Sydney Cummings' stocks must be going up as a result of the season she's had.
It's got to be. I'd be so baffled if she didn't get a crack into it. She said it was really hard to crack into the Wave team, and surely they're watching. You know, there's been so many players from the NWSL coming over here, so they know the league very well. Another one's Hannah Keane. I think she's tried to break into the NWSL before. I'll be so surprised if, you know, a team isn't on the hunt for her. So, you know, she spoke volumes about being here and how much it's helping her in her career. So it's fantastic to see.
Cummings is only 23 and doesn't turn 24, well, until March, 1 month away.
Wow, so young. And
entering the peak of her career.
Yeah.
Not even still on very much the upward trajectory.
So she's in the right place. She's doing the right things, and you know the only thing missing is what she can't control. Is that are they watching? That's the question.
Well, I think this, let's be honest. This is a great destination league to come to, because every game's broadcast. We've got the ability to amplify it. The social media does quite well.
It's so accessible.
I mean, we watch Angie Beard in that game. I was trying to find footage of her playing in the Danish Cup final for Fortuna Horing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the game was filmed. Never mind whether the game was broadcast. You know, that's when Indy Riley was still Australian and also still in that team. And I just wanted to get the footage. I wanted to see the goals. You know, and unfortunately, you know, it wasn't out there. Or my Danish Googling is clearly not good enough. But you know, this is a great launching pad and selling point, and I think the fact Australia's hosting a World Cup means that we are going to be a magnet to so many more players that, you know, you get players that have, you know, agents that know how to sell their clients, but you get individual players that may not have an agent that just fire off emails or use the contact network to be able to get in touch. After the World Cup, I wouldn't be surprised if A-League women's teams are inundated with a level of interest of international players that want to come here, because they know this is somewhere that's a shop window that you can sell yourself. And, of course, it's a very nice country to live in and play. Yeah,
and look, the lockdowns are thankfully all over now. So, I think from next season, I think there will be a lot of knocks on the door, a lot of emails coming through from players wanting to come here. You know, Sid Cummings, you know, players will go back with good things to say about the league. So, yeah, I would not be surprised if there's a whole host of new foreign players coming next season.
So we know who will finish round 14 in top spot on the Liberty A-League ladder. That is Western United after their win over Melbourne City. Let's head back to Perry Park now, where we've got 4v5. Brisbane Roar can't jump into fourth today with a win, but they do have a game in hand. So 3 points here for them at home against fourth place Victory. Teo would be huge, and they are right in this one at the moment.
Yeah, they definitely are. We saw Roar's goal scorer, Shay Connors, there having another attempt, but 10 shots, 4 on the target, but only 0.54 XG. So they're not creating great chances, but they are peppering with 10 total shots. Victory, 8 shots, 3 on target. They're shading possession 54-46, and we did see while we were chatting about Sydney Cummings and the confirmation of the substitution there in the graphic, Melina Ayres is back, and she was on 5 goals for the season before another hamstring injury. You just hope, Teresa, that Victory's desperation for results hasn't mean they've rushed Melina Ayres back again, because when she's out there, she scores goals, but she gets injured, and I think that the urgency with which she wants to play and with Victory want to play her has been a factor in perhaps flying, too close to the sun on re-injuring herself.
Yeah, and Ayres, the type of player she is, she needs consistency. When she's coming in and out of teams and games, it's hard for her to build that and keep scoring. So hopefully, she's coming back at the right time. She's 100%. It might take a couple games for her to, completely find her feet and start scoring again, but they desperately need her.
Well, we've been talking about that pathway for young Australian players here on Dub Zone today, and we saw the Young Matildas squad named this week by their coach, Leah Blaney, who's been good enough to join us on Dub Zone this afternoon. Leah, it is so good to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with where you are. You're out on a scouting mission this afternoon. We can hear the birds in the background. Let us know where you are and what's happening.
Yes, hi Teo and Neve. I'm currently at the Proctor Cup, which is held in the regional area of New South Wales in Bathurst. It's held each year for male and female footballers, and this year there's actually 121 teams from across Australia competing in this tournament from U14 to U17, so it's a tremendous weekend.
What an awesome place to be, and gorgeous weather conditions by the looks as well. We're going to have a look at your squad that you named this week for the Young Matildas right now. And one thing that absolutely stands out is just how strong the Liberty A-League contingent are there within your side. How big a platform is the league for your Young Matildas team?
Look, it's definitely a very exciting group of players. I think we've named 21 players in the squad that actually are playing or training on training scholarships with A-League sides. And just in saying that, there's also other players that are outside of the Liberty A-League that are being considered, and players abroad. So this is a preliminary squad until we name our final squad for Asian Cup, which is our Youth World Cup qualifiers, round 1. And the door's certainly open for a lot of players across the country and abroad that are available for Australia.
Now, Leah, we saw Melbourne City name a player, the first 2007-born player on the bench today, Kira Meyer. She didn't get subbed on, though, so we still haven't seen a 2007-born player play in the A-League just yet. But your age range for this team, it's 2004 to 2006, if I'm not mistaken, and talk us through sort of the age range of the players that you're looking at building to your next tournament cycle.
Correct. Our oldest cohort sits at 2004, and then obviously we've got 2005, 2006s who are eligible. Previously in World Cup selections, we've seen the lower end age group selected. I think we had 7 come to our last Youth World Cup who are now eligible for this Youth World Cup, which again, I'll reiterate, this is a brand new squad, and everybody who's coming into the environment and performing well outside of the environment still remain strongly considered.
Match minutes are precious, as we know, but not every player is a regular in their A-League women's team. There's a few NPL players in there as well. We know that the league's expanding with Central Coast coming in. What do you actually think is sort of the optimum size of the league in order to, without compromising on quality or without opening up the gap between the strongest and developing players? What actually is sort of the balance of how big the league needs to get in order to give optimum minutes to players that are coming through?
Look, I think expansion is excellent. The more teams we can add and keep that balance of quality, which is a fine line between our youth players as well as the quality of the internationals we're bringing into the league as well. That's extremely important for our expansion. The more games there are, the more opportunities there are for players to receive match minutes. And just touching on that, Teo, like match minutes are obviously extremely important, but if you are a player that is at a bigger club and maybe not getting as much game time as others are, then we're certainly in a position where we've been topping those players up with additional conditioning and those kind of things to try and bridge that deficit and put everybody on an equal playing field.
Hi, Leah. Brianna here, and I had the pleasure of meeting Daniela Galich's family at the game last week. And so is there a lot of pressure of her to make the Matilda squad?
Knowing Danielle Galich for a long time now, the kid goes out and she just takes each game by game, and she loves football. So I don't feel like there is pressure on her because she loves the game and she plays the game for herself. If it comes for her sooner than later, fantastic. However, it comes at different times. I don't see the need to rush this player. And if you're putting one in, you've got to take one out, right? So I think that some of the Matildas who are performing very, very well might have something to say about that.
Hey, Leah, you're in Bathurst. When are you back? When are we commentating a game together again?
I leave very early tomorrow morning via the Blue Mountains, a quick sleep, pack my bag for camp in Melbourne Monday, and I'll see you in the studio on the way in.
These two games, of course, they're against Western United and Melbourne City. And those are two interesting tests because they have a lot of train-ons and a lot of young players as well. So what is it you want to get out of these games?
Look, we have a need to come up against different style of opponents. So if we look at how City play and we look at the physicality of the Western side and the fact that, with the recent announcements, Western aren't losing a lot of players with the FIFA window, and then obviously Melbourne City have a strong cohort of players. We just thought it was an optimal time to play against these two squads. It'll give us an opportunity to see how players adapt in a little bit more of a tournament scenario, given the closeness of the games, as well as to see others who we haven't had in the environment for a number of reasons recently that I'm excited to see back on the pitch playing and putting their best foot forward.
Leah, we hope the games go really well. Thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone today.
No worries. Enjoy the rest of the games. Thanks, guys.
Leah Blaney, the head coach of the Young Matildas, joining us on Dub Zone this afternoon from a windy old Bathurst in the end, but wonderful to have a chat with Leah ahead of a couple of big games. And when we talk about that pathway into the Matildas squad, Teo, and over the years we've spoken about pressure, for example, needing to have that pressure on the defence of the Matildas with other players coming through, pushing for a spot, making sure that pressure remains. That pathway is such an important part of that equation.
And again there, we're talking about players born 2004 to 2006. So if you're 2003 born, you might still be a teenager. You might still be 19 and you've already aged out of the young Matildas cycle.
Crazy,
and that's where the Liberty A-League is going to be so important, getting longer, more game time, and it takes the pressure off. I've got to get an agent. I've got to go to Europe. I've got to push on with my career in order to make it as a professional because, all of a sudden, there's nowhere else to go other than your club. So this cycle will be interesting. It's a great opportunity for Western and for Melbourne City. Credit to the two clubs for putting the Young Matildas up for these games. I just want to throw a little pebble in the water. Back in the old WNBL, in the basketball, the AIS used to have a team, Brianna.
Oh, yes. Tell me anything basketball.
Yeah, and I just wonder, I know Central Coast Mariners are the next expansion team. Are we going to get to the point where a young Matildas style team,
stop your
regardless of what city they're based in, it might have to be somewhere in New South Wales, are we meandering towards the young Matildas being their own team in the Liberty A-League? Just going to throw that out there, but yeah.
That reminds me.
I have no inside info. This is just food for thought. So.
Okay. Yeah. Look, what would they be called?
They'd be called the Young Matildas.
Tillies.
Yeah, same as the AIS were. And that was when we're talking a long time ago. This is back when Lauren Jackson was starting her career.
But it did create that really consistent pathway for a lot of ladies. Yeah, that did come into the league.
And you mentioned, Teo, at 19 you could have nothing ahead of you in terms of national team. Well, that brings in the under-23s, doesn't it?
Next time they reconvene,
They must bring that into it. But, I mean, having a young Matildas-based team in the league would be quite interesting.
I think it would create a lot of recruitment issues as well. But I think the thing is, there's so much talk around expanding the league because you can't go and mandate to coaches and tell them who to pick. And some of the players there that were in the Young Matilda squad that aren't in A-League women's clubs at the moment are Queenslanders. Ella O'Grady is from Brisbane. And again, it comes back to sort of the one-team town discussion as well. And if you have options, if you're in Sydney, you've got Sydney FC, you've got Western Sydney, you can go up the freeway to the Central Coast next year, you can go further up to Newcastle, you could go down to Canberra. If you're in Melbourne, you've got 3 teams. But Australia is a big country, and we produce a lot of good players in Perth, in Adelaide, in Queensland. And I just wonder, the young Matildas and Leah Blaney, the reason she's out in Bathurst is they're trying to let as few people as possible fall through that net.
Well, you've got a lot of things to consider here. Where is the team based? How are young players going to relocate? Does this narrow the pathway as well? You don't want the focus being, I need to get into that team to make it. You don't want it to be like that. The way it is currently, players playing at any club at the moment can be considered for the young Matildas. If they had a team in the competition, does that kind of put the blinkers on and make that the only pathway? There's a lot to think about in that.
That's a great point, actually.
Yeah, but
especially given my previous stances on selection and opening. I've been hoisted on my own petard here.
And also relocating players from home would be, it's a hard thing for a young person to have to move to another place, to as the only pathway. That's the only thing I'm sort of concerned about with that happening.
It's a conversation that I think will definitely continue this afternoon on Dub Zone and moving forward as well. But for now, let's dive back into Perry Park, where you've got Brisbane Roar up against Melbourne Victory. Tail remains 1-1 at the moment. Victory with a shot on goal there from a free.
So the stats, Roar have had 14 shots, 6 on target, but they still haven't cracked 1 XG, 0.76. Victory, 12 shots, 4 on target, 1.17. They are now starting to take over possession, up to 56%. So maybe just turning the screws as far as substitutions are concerned. For all the comments about what a hot day it is, neither team has actually really turned to the bench yet with 15 minutes still to go. So as we see a ball over the top here from Katrina Gorry, looking for Larissa Crummer, it runs wide. Normally in games that are oppressive, you have the benches emptied a lot earlier with a lot more fresh legs into the game in order to maintain the level of intensity. At the moment, Holly Palmer and Indy Riley have been subbed out, Sian Fryer and Zara Kruger for the Roar, whereas the Victory have only made the one change. Amy Jackson off, Melina Ayres on. The players on the bench, Roar have still got Holly McQueen, a defender, and Tamar Levin, who has played both left-sided defence and the left side of a front three. Victory have still got Alana Murphy, Paige Zoyce and Ava Breeder. So they've got some wild cards there that they can bring into the game if they feel as though the pace of the game, Teresa, isn't enough for them to go on and try to secure the win.
Yeah, I think in the next 5 or so minutes we might see some changes heading into that 80th minute mark. But the thing that stands out to me today is Brisbane's energy on the pitch today. I haven't seen them, of late come to a game with so much energy and desire to go at a team, especially against Victory. So that's a positive thing to see, given the heat as well, which they did, speak about. They're doing quite well today. So, yeah, it's going to make for a very, very hopefully peak dub finish.
Is it ultimately Brisbane who chase this one harder? When you think about what's on the line from a finals perspective, they've got that game in hand. They're on home turf.
Yeah.
When we see those attacking changes come, is it Brisbane Roar making them?
Yeah, at the moment I think Brisbane are the happier of the two sides. If they want to make a big change, they're the ones to put the subs on. Sian Fryer came on last week and was fantastic. I thought she brought a lot of energy, albeit in a difficult game against Adelaide. She didn't have much support, but she definitely deserves to be on there trying to get her team on the score sheet again.
Brisbane have created more than they did against Adelaide last week, but it hasn't been a profoundly different looking attacking setup and performance. It's a great goal from Shay Connors, but it hasn't been profoundly different from last week where they really struggled to create a great deal against Adelaide.
Yeah, they just look more positive today. There's something about, I don't know, is it more bounce in their step maybe? There's just something about them I find a little more energetic, which is a positive thing to see.
Yeah, I agree.
So replaying here some of the chances in the second half, you can see Casey Dumont not looking too worried about some of those opportunities. So this is a big 10 minutes, and we'll probably get 6 or 7 minutes of stoppage time again at the end of the game. Gareth McPherson here giving the team talk to his team. It is a bit of a surprise that they are struggling to create, though, Teresa. Brisbane, this season they've been kind of inconsistent, I would say. And I know that last week I mentioned that they haven't got close to the top 4 teams on the table. If they were to get a draw today, this would be a breakthrough of sorts. It doesn't help them in terms of closing the gap to the top 4. But they were beaten 4-1 at home by Sydney, 4-0 away. Yeah. They were beaten 3-0 by Melbourne City away. They were Western United. I'm drawing a blank again on what their result against. 2-0 down in Tasmania. So they'd only scored 1 goal, I think, for the entire season against teams in the top 4, and that came when they were already 4-0 down against Sydney FC. So we see Ava Breedis come on here, and we did flag that she might be a creative option for Melbourne victory after Alex Chidiac leaves. It's quite an attacking sub. She's come on for Nat Tatham as well, so it looks like at least Kellon Knight might move into defence. But this is the best performance they've had against the team in the top 4 this season.
It is, and I think Brisbane are underachieving for the squad they do have. For me, an issue is in the midfield. I think if they had one more creative midfielder to kind of take the attention away from Katrina Gorry and force teams to focus on another player, that would enable her to get on the ball and be a bit more influential than she's been able to be. That would help Brisbane.
It sounds like they'd really benefit from having an Alex Chidiac in there, wouldn't they?
They would. I mean, if you throw Alex Chidiac in there as well.
I wonder what team can put Alex Chidiac and Katrina Gorry in the same midfield, Teresa.
What team?
The Matildas.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully we see that come next week, because I think they'd work beautifully well together. It'll be interesting to see if Gorry's deployed as a holding mid or an attacking mid. So many things that we're looking forward to.
Can I give you some passing numbers? Because I did in the first half. We've got 10 minutes to go. So Gorry now, 51 total touches, 27 passes at 69% completion accuracy. Chids, 52 touches, 39 passes, 34 completed, 87% accuracy. So they are literally separated by 1 touch, 51 to 52.
Yeah.
Again, the 2 key players in this game.
Yeah, 2 key players. I think just Chidiac's accuracy is slightly better there. But yeah, look, if Brisbane can spark another midfield, I know Aisha Norrie is more of a holding mid. I think is it Holly Palmer that's in there as well. If she can get on the ball a bit more and take a bit of attention from Gorry, I think it'll do them a world of good. But at the moment, it's difficult for Katrina Gorry to be as influential as she'd like to be.
You mentioned that different role that she's playing with the Matildas as opposed to Brisbane. How hard is it for a player to transition between that attacking role that we've seen her play so often throughout her career, and we see her playing it here with the Raw, and that holding, more defensive role that we're seeing her make her own in the Matildas setup? And I think TG is quite determined that she will make it.
I'm glad that TG is giving her the time it takes to adjust to that role, because it's a demanding role in that you have to be very disciplined, and Katrina Gorry is a naturally attacking player.
She wants to get forward.
She gets joy from going forward and being super creative, and the holding role is so disciplined, and probably in a game you might get a chance to go forward once or twiise.
And we do see her do it.
We do,
and
that's okay. And it's great to do that as long as someone is stepping back for her and taking on that holding role. It's okay to interchange within a game as long as everyone's on the same page. So credit to her, because at this stage in your career, she's used to being such an attacking player, and to make that adjustment's really difficult. But she's been great because she's a great tackler. She's a tough player. She's durable. So if there's someone to make that transition to a 6, it is Katrina Gorry.
So those midfield combinations then become hugely important, because in those moments where Minnie does push forward and attack, she needs to know that her midfield unit is behind her and will slip back into those defensive roles as they need to. So during the Cup of Nations, will we get a really good idea of what Tony Gustafsson thinks is his midfield for the World Cup?
Yeah.
Because they'll need to spend that time together.
I think it'll be close to it. I'd love to see Claire Wheeler get a lot of time, because I think she's box to box. She's a box to box player, and I think it'll be a great balance of her, Chids, and Katrina Gorry on the pitch, and having an understanding.
Oh, what a good
shots.
save!
There you
Sorry,
go.
T.
That was a great shot, but sometimes you don't get the time on the field to talk verbally. It's just having that understanding, that unspoken understanding on the field to know, Minnie's gone forward, I need to sit. And that's what I think Claire Wheeler could offer.
Now, that's another former Brisbane Roar Jeff Hopkins era player, Casey Dumont, making that save from Katrina Gorry on the turn. Great technique and an equally good save to bat it away. Here's the resulting corner. Roar going for the win, trying to keep their season and top four charge going. And it's blocked away. Ishinoori denied. Here's a follow-up from Jamila Rankin, I think that was. And it bends out. Yeah, Rankin there coming in with the shot on the spin. But this is good from the Roar, because we had said that they hadn't created a great deal in spite of scoring a goal. Well, now this is signs that maybe they are going to load up and go for it.
Yep.
In the last, we think there's at least 10 minutes to go with the amount of stoppage that we'll have.
Yeah, and there was a great shot to start that play from Minnie. Katrina Gorry, she cut in, beautiful left-footed strike, a great save from Dumont, which resulted in the corner, and then 2 consecutive strikes after. So, yeah, it is some bright spots from Brisbane Roar.
And I love this tweet as well, Bree, from El Kaz, pumping up the tyres. So rightly so, of our very own Teresa Palace.
That's right. Ellie Kaz, she's tweeted, absolutely loving at midfielder T on Dub Zone for the A-League.
Oh,
Sorry, another chance down the other end. That was Melina Ayres, the born goal scorer Melina Ayres, forcing a great save out of Hensley Handcuff. So, Teresa, you said, are we getting the
Down
big finish? I think we are now.
The opposite end.
Now,
Handcuff coming
that's
into
not
play
a great
there.
back pass. I'm
That's a
sure
good
Norrie
save,
would love
though.
that back. And
Great save.
If there's one player you're going to give it away to, Melina Ayres is the last person you want to see lurking in.
It is not the player you want it to land to with a first-time shot either.
Does Chidiac go for the Olympico straight from the corner here?
It is quite windy. I can't tell the way the wind's going, but she definitely will if it's in her favour.
She did it against Perth. Alex Chidiac, left-footed. It's going to swing in. It's going to fall right on the keeper. And it's batted away. And now the follow-up is shanked off the side of the foot. And the Roar survive. 5 minutes of regulation to go.
They're holding strong, Brisbane Roar. It's great to see, this finish to the game. And it's end-to-end now, so chaos.
Wow. Well, we were speaking about the Matildas before. Because we have another look at the corner. Earlier this morning, an extraordinary statement from the Canada women's national team, and of course they're in our group at the World Cup, but they've really called out their federation. They're calling it out. They're saying that it's underfunded, that they're not having enough support from their national team, and they're in our group. Like, this is...
Wow.
If you're a Matildas fan, this is what you want to see. You want to see them turning on their own.
But as a women's football fan...
Well, that's big picture here, Taya.
A dark way to look at it.
It is a really massive statement. Adriana Leon shared the statement that came from the whole Canadian national team. Of course, we saw Adriana score some cracking goals in Australia last year when Canada were here and beat the Matildas throughout that series, plays for Manchester United, an absolute gun. But she has said, and the team has said, Teresa, that because of funding issues, camps have been cancelled.
That's just...
They're down on numbers in terms of staff and players who will attend those camps, and that they won't play a single game at home before the World Cup.
No farewell game for the Olympic gold medalist.
Wow.
That actually is a disgrace.
And number 6 in the world. A real chance of going deep in this World Cup if they have the ability and give them the opportunity to play to their potential.
I mean, it's just so sad to see and very concerning. I mean, you can look at it as a Matildas fan, but I'm a Matildas fan, but it saddens me to hear something like that. You've got such a strong nation, and not that you have to be strong to get the support of your federation, but it's for them to be going backwards and not forwards as a federation is quite appalling.
I mean, what's their excuse? They won the Olympic gold. They qualified for the Men's World Cup for the first time in 30-something years, and they're co-hosting the next Men's World Cup. How are they cutting back? The game should be going on an upward trajectory.
And what is their excuse? And why is it taking players calling out federations for them to be accountable and explaining why they're going backwards and not forwards? It just doesn't make sense. And there's a real rot there, in my view, that's happening.
Okay, just from a Matilda's point of view, though, I mean, these are the little one percenters and the seeds of disharmony that can totally derail. I think a few people are underestimating. I know the World Cup for the women has been in China before, but I think coming down Southern Hemisphere, we've never had a Women's World Cup in South America. This is, the opposite end of the world for so many of these players. I just think the little one percenters and the hosting and home ground advantage, these are the things that, who knows what other teams might follow Canada's lead. And, it could be a powerhouse. It could be a France or a Germany or someone you wouldn't expect it from to turn around and say, well, hang on, if it's not good enough for the Olympic gold medalist, and all these players, many of them will have been teammates at European clubs in NWSL, the network of friendships and, through their sponsors as well. Many of them will have met and will have, relationships where they talk to each other and know what's going on. You don't know what sort of fire this could set off in other national teams that are coming here too. If it's not good enough for the Olympic gold medalist, then who is it good for?
Guys, I have to call out this tweet just quickly. I smell heartbreak for Brisbane. Oh. I don't want to hear it. Hey, Sam, I can't do it.
Because ultimately the Matildas play Canada in the final group game. So all going to plan from both of those nations' perspectives at least, that is the game that could well decide top spot in the group, remembering that who finishes second in our group could well meet England in the first of the knockout rounds. That is a massive game.
It's huge, and to me, Canada are a powerhouse, arguably. They've won a gold medal. They've been, in that top 10 for a very long time. They're always challengers. Women's football in Canada is a top sport. Why now are they going backwards? Who is responsible for this rot in their federation? Who's sending the game backwards? It's unacceptable. And players having to call it out. What happens next?
The incredible thing is a privately run Canadian professional league for women is actually going to be starting soon too. So private enterprise is looking, they see the NWSL, but, they want a reality where not every good Canadian player has to immediately hop over the border for both college and pro. They want to, grow their own thing. And again, that's inspired, but you win an Olympic gold medal.
That's right.
It's a huge deal. It's the second biggest trophy you can win in women's football.
And that's privately run?
My understanding is that, there's even ex-players. I think even Christine Sinclair is an investor in the league, and yet, they should be coming here as a favourite to win this tournament. We should be intimidated, by the fact that they're in our group. And I'm sitting here thinking, hey, if it's 6-6, 0-0, and we get a free hit at Canada, and that the prize for losing is England, and the prize for winning is Denmark or China. I mean, that game is going to be, really a cracker. And hey, if Canada implodes, they might not arrive at that game with 6 points. Could be a totally different scenario.
And they could implode now. If they don't have the resources they need to prepare for a major tournament, which comes around every 4 years, they could implode. It speaks of weakness to them when you're talking about one percenters. Everything counts in this.
Well, the fact they had to go public is perhaps more damning than whatever's actually going wrong, to be honest.
That
couldn't be resolved behind closed doors. Yeah.
And it could have been resolved, and obviously it hasn't. And someone in that federation is a rot and is not there for the right reasons. And they've had to resort to coming out publicly. So, this could spell a huge danger for Canada. I hope that's not the case, because you want the best players here on our shores. We want to be watching the best players. We want the spectacle to be amazing. We want the Matildas to beat the best, because to be the best, cliche, you got to beat the best. So, it remains to be seen what happens, but very, very concerning.
You say you want to see the best players here. Don't get me started on Spain.
Oh, another.
For those of you wondering, 15 players in the Spanish national team are still not being considered for selection due to their protest at how the RFEF is running the team, and also the continued employment of Jorge Vilda as the team's coach.
And that started mid last year. That became public very quickly before we head back to Perry Park and take a real deep dive into the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes of this clash. Do you think that the players not named for Spain would beat the players named to come out for Cup of Nations?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
100%. Yes.
And that's a huge statement, isn't it? 4 months out from the Women's World Cup, and Spain as well, a side that should be contending for that trophy.
They should be, and the quick rise to success of the Spanish team, the women's football particularly, I guess has outpaced, certain members in the federation's values and morals, and I don't know how to describe what's going on in that federation, but it's another rot in the system.
But it's cost us as fans. I mean,
exactly.
Anyone who watched the 7-0 Spain beating Australia last year wants to see the players that were responsible.
I want to see Alexia Putellas here
for turning on that clinic of football. I mean, the fact that someone like Aitana Bonmati, who is, I think, right now the best player right there, neck and neck with Sam Kerr as the best player in the world, is not coming out here. We as fans are poorer for it.
We are. And the Matildas are too, because at
they
the
want
end
to
of
get
the
that
day,
test. They
want the test against the best. That's why this was organised. And now they're having to play, B or C side of Spain, which, is a lot different to their A team.
Teresa, are we going to get a late goal? We're almost 4 minutes into 7 minutes of stoppage time here, and it's really opening up end-to-end. Both teams have emptied the bench. We saw Tamar Levin come on for Jessie Rashard, but that's perhaps an attacking sub in the sense that she's a defender that can get forward. We see young Ava Breedis, the 16-year-old, wearing the number 22, trying to pull the strings in midfield. But look at the gaps that are opening up now. A win here is priceless either way.
It is. I'm going to say late goal Brisbane.
Yes.
Just call it.
Yes, T.
Go
yeah,
one
you're going to
way.
say it.
All right, so this is Beattie Goad, who has played another marvellous 90 minutes here, and commentators curse, but at least it's her throw. I thought she'd taken that out of her own volition.
I thought so too.
So the Victory need to execute here. They need to get the ball in an area for Melina Reyes to poach a goal. Ava Breedis there. I said she can replace Chids. She's winning fouls. That's a good start.
There you go.
Knows how to draw the midfield in. And Elise Kellon Knight at the other end of the experience scale plays it to Tiff Eliadis, and now Victory look to build. Raw getting numbers back behind the ball here. They know that the season slips away from them as far as the top four if they concede late. So they'll be desperate to contain and counter. Here's young Breedis again. He's got really good control of the ball here and is able to shovel a pass sideways, and now Katrina Gorry is there trying to win it back for Brisbane, and the whistle goes and Gorry is able to draw the foul.
She is, and Brisbane, they're struggling to send numbers forward at the moment. Gorry had it earlier and only Crummer in front of her, so they're going to need to dig deep, push as many forward as they can. If they want the winner, perhaps they're settling for the draw here.
No, well, see, I suggested this in commentary in the Adelaide game last week because they were looking super conservative in the second half, and it was a set piece that led to them scoring the goal. You see 29 fouls in the game.
Wow.
That's a foul fest. That's probably the most fouls of a game this season. 30,
that's a lot of
almost
stoppages.
30 combined. Yeah.
So
Jessica Nash here gets another chance for Victory, but we're going to tick into the very last minute of additional time. So the clock is the enemy of both sides here. Certainly from a Perth point of view, they would love a draw because it hurts both teams. And from an Adelaide point of view, they've got the bye this week, so they're probably watching on as well, hoping that a draw can hold as the result here. So there's implications all up and down the table. Victory looking to build in midfield, and no foul given. Raw in possession. It's looking a bit scrappy. Cassia Lynn just hits it long, hoping for some magic late. Can they get the numbers in the box here, Brisbane Raw?
Oh, my goodness.
Gorry goes to work, clips it over. Shay Connors in the penalty area. And as it runs out the back of the box, is either team going to be good enough to produce here in the dying seconds? Beattie Goat just hits the line, and it's bouncing down to Tamar Levin, one of the subs. 10 seconds to go. And the Raw are being forced backwards here. So, Lind again. Hits it long, and the whistle goes, and that's it. So, frustration for both teams. Alex Chidiak's penalty in the first half has been cancelled out from Shay Connor's marvellous curving strike barely a minute later, and neither team was able to add to the score. So it's not as good as a win for Victory, but it's as bad as a loss for Brisbane because it leaves them with the gap remaining wide open to the top four, and it means that Melbourne Victory consolidate in the top four for another week.
it does. Interesting result, and makes things a bit harder for Brisbane going forward.
When you look at those match stats there, Teo, and having watched the game play out, It felt like, through the highlights at least, that Shay Connors was getting herself in some really good areas. It was a gorgeous goal that she scored. That Brisbane did have a bit more pep in their step this week.
Yeah, they did. And in the end, 20 total shots, 7 on target. But 0.9 XG. So that to have 7 shots on target and not even have 1 XG, that says you're peppering from a long way away, or you're taking low percentage shots that even though the goalkeeper has to pick the ball up and make a save, it might literally be just picking the ball up and making a save rather than having to dive to save. T, what do the highlights tell us? It was a penalty won by Beattie Goad, converted by Alex Chidiac, the equaliser a minute later, and then frustration for both teams after that.
Yeah, it was pretty much a stalemate for the rest of the game. Both teams, struggling to get a good shot on goal. They had a lot of shots, but, nothing too challenging for the goalkeepers.
So here's another look here at that Shay Connors strike. Second goal of the season, and we know that when she gets on a scoring streak, Connors, she can be deadly. She had 8 in 15 coming into the campaign and has had to wait for that first goal, but she's now got 2 in 3. And again, Raw, even if they can't close the gap to finals, as we've seen today, they can take teams off. They'll be so happy that they've got points off a top 4 team because they hadn't been close in their previous meetings against City, Western and Sydney. But now they've been able to make an impact, and that really plants their flag on, an important result for them.
Yeah, on the back of a hard-fought win last week, they've got points off a top 4 team. Shay Connors on the score sheet again. These are all positives they've got to draw out of it and reflect on it as a team and take that and use it as motivation going into the next round because they need points from pretty much a win in most fixtures now.
Well, their magic number goes down by 2 more points. So I think they can only get to 33 now, which means that Western United's 1 win away from effectively they're uncatchable. And then once teams start to tick themselves off and you run out of teams to catch, then
that battle for the 4th spot is heating up. I think it's victories to lose, basically.
I mean, we talked about the MVP, Jeff Hopkins, the most valuable person in the league. I mean, they've won away to Adelaide.
I thought he was CEO.
He is the CEO. CEO of women's football.
I wouldn't call him MVP just yet.
They got the win away to Adelaide. They got the win away to Perth. They got a draw away to Brisbane. They are getting the key results against all the teams that want 4th, but they're unbeaten against them.
That's right. So I think victories still aren't convincing me. They're still, to me, not where they want to be when it comes to talk about finals. I'm not prepared to say they're going to make finals yet.
But I'm glad Ava Breedis got minutes and looked bright there because, again, we talk about if Chidiac's out, who's coming in. You said leave Beattie Goad on the left. We actually saw Beattie Goad get moved back to left back there at the end of the game.
But Breedis coming on, perhaps that answers the question about who's there to replace Chidiac. She's got big boots to fill, but she's starting young. She's obviously learnt a lot from Chidiac at training on and off the pitch. So props to Jeff for backing the youngster.
We've seen 4 of our top 5 teams in action this afternoon on Dove Zone. Let's throw it back a little bit now to Amy Park and our first game of the afternoon, Western United against Melbourne City, Teo, as we have a look at the highlights in what was a top-of-the-table clash with top spot on the line.
I mean, these two are destined to meet in a final. We need a part 3, don't we?
We do.
Letitia McKenna, great finish, great goal. She was subbed off in the second half. This swung the game. And we say it a lot, or at least I say it a lot on this show, but Melbourne City's centre-backs and passing out of defence is a liability. It's cost them the equaliser here today. And then a handball. Carly Johnson, first act after coming off the bench, super sub, wins the penalty. Sydney Cummings, nerves of steel, steps up and buries the spot kick. And that actually, after that, Western United, they were absorbing a lot from City prior to that counter-attack and that goal. After that, they actually controlled the territory and possession a little bit more to close out the game.
It feels like it's deliberate, though, that they absorb that pressure. They lull you into a false sense of security, and then on a counter-attack, they punish you. They've done it so many times. We heard Sid Cummings speak about that and, how confident they are in themselves. But another fantastic win from United. Carly Johnson coming on and earning the penalty and seeing Sydney Cummings take that penalty and how confident she was, that really gives you a lot of confidence as a whole team.
Is it the best rivalry in the A-League Women's at the moment, Melbourne City versus Western United? I know it's only 2 games old, but they're from the same city. They play at opposite ends of the same city.
I'd like you to remember that this question comes from Mr. NPL Victoria himself.
But I'm asking someone who's been in the heat of the Sydney-Brisbane rivalry, the Sydney-Canberra rivalry.
At the moment, Teo, given today's altercation, I think that pushed it over the edge, and I would say yes,
So
it is.
Katie Bowen versus Danielle
I think
Steele.
so, yeah.
We need part 3 for that alone.
That right there sparked the game. I think it woke United up today as well after that happening, and that pumped everyone up. But before that, I would have said, it's getting there. I don't know if I could have answered it, but if I had to give another answer, I'd probably say it's Sydney and Victory maybe. Just given the results in the past couple of years, and that tends to be a pretty fiery encounter.
I mean, until last week, it was probably Sydney and Melbourne City, and then Sydney. I mean,
Yeah,
they came back and won the semi-final. They comprehensively won last week, and I think that means they've won 4 out of the last 5 against City. So there's not balance in that rivalry. Whereas Melbourne City have led in both games, and Western United have come from behind to beat them in both games.
They have, and it's huge from Western United in their, first season to beat City twice with the team City can field every week and the experience they have.
To correct myself, they had the chance to lead in the first game. They missed the penalty, had the penalty saved, but they led today.
They did.
Let's get the reacts from Perry Park now, where it finished Brisbane Roar 1, Melbourne Victory 1. And Larissa Crummer from Brisbane Roar has been good enough to join us on Dub Zone. Larissa, thank you so much for coming on the show. Step us through what looked like a tough physical contest when you ultimately had to share the points today.
Yeah, look, it's really hot in Brisbane, which doesn't help playing at 2 p.m. We need victory. It was going to be a hard one coming into the game, and look, we fought for 90 minutes, and 1-1 I think is pretty even. I think, we play at a different time, and it's a completely different game.
For your side, sitting 5th on the ladder with a game in hand, how big a clash was this for you and your hopes for playing finals football this season?
Yeah, look, it's huge. I mean, every week we talk about where we're sitting, and we need to take points off teams that are ahead of us, and I think it's just big that we keep putting our head down and get 3 points from here on out for every game.
Larissa, I don't know if it was obvious as you played. There were 30 total fouls, 15 each in today's game. When it's start-stop like that, how hard is it to actually build any momentum and get any rhythm going?
Yeah, look, it upsets the game. I think all players have a little chat about it while we're playing. It's some fouls aren't fouls, and it just stop-start all the time. And, it makes us angry, and it's definitely happened today.
Hey Larissa, it's T here. How are you feeling about your form at the moment, and how are you feeling heading into the Cup of Nations next week?
Look, I'd like a bit more goals under my belt, but I take what I can get. I'm feeling quite good. I'm obviously really fit at the moment, which is definitely helping me. But I feel confident heading in.
As far as how you'll be deployed, I mean, have you spoken to the national team? Are you expecting to come off the bench as a defender? Are you hoping that they play you as a forward in one of these 3 games?
Obviously forward's my preferred position, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to play defence and actually get minutes, I'm not too bothered.
And as far as at the Roar, have you spoken to the Roar about if that's your path into the Matildas, you'd rather play defence? I mean, I know it's your preferred position to play forward, and of course you've won the Golden Boot in this competition, so you love scoring goals, but is it a move you'd consider making if it helps your case for the Matildas?
Look, I think that's something you have to talk to Gareth about. I don't see him putting me back there, and I don't have a problem with that.
Fair enough.
And look, hi, I'm Brianna. I'm from Brisbane, so I'm a big Raw fan, and I was rooting for just an extra goal at the end there. But what do you take from this draw into the next game?
Look, that's obviously victory at one of the top table teams, and if we can fight like that for 90 minutes in nearly 35-degree heat, I'd love to see what we can do when it's not so hot at 2 p.m.
Larissa, congrats on taking a point today. Good luck in the Matilda squad with the Cup of Nations over the next couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us on Dub Zone.
Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your night, hey? Cheers.
Larissa Crummer from Brisbane Roar joining us after it finished 1-1 with Melbourne Victory.
See, we talk about coaches making the decisions. She said it's Gareth's decision. And we spoke about Sophia Huerta earlier, only coming to Sydney to play as that outside back, as that wing-back role. Whereas for Larissa Crummer, the Raw want her playing up front. They want her scoring goals and leading the line. And so I do find it interesting that disconnect there between how the Matildas will deploy her and how the Raw will deploy her. It's played out in front of us today.
But also, I think the Raw are in desperate need of a striker too. So when you talk about Huerta and playing right back, well, Ante had other players at his disposal to throw up top and make up for that. Whereas I don't think the Raw have that much choice.
And look, at the start of the show, I asked about a very important poll we put up. And of course, it is about the Cup of Nations. Who do you want to see? And results have come in. Teo is fist bumping. You can't see him, but we'll cut to him soon. Because Alex Chidiac, she is the number one vote there. Taking it out. How do you feel about that, Teo?
People are excited for Chids. I mean, people should be excited for Sam Kerr. I mean, she scored 4 against West Ham. She's going to probably score... How many do we reckon Sam Kerr is going to score across the 3 games? 5? I reckon 4 or 5 across the 3 games.
Yes.
What's 4 a game?
I was going to
12.
say 4. 4, I'm going to say, yeah.
We've got another game coming up for you in Liberty A-League action on 10 Play on Paramount Plus. It's kicked off. It's at McKellar Park, Canberra United taking on Sydney FC. Sydney FC have been in incredible form coming into this one. Teo, step us through the team sheets.
Yeah, so Jada Wyman back in goal, but has been welcomed back by a Michelle Heyman strike. So the score is currently 1-0 to Canberra United. Canberra bringing in a fairly stable-looking team from the one that defeated Newcastle 3-0 last week. Why would you make changes after coming off a win? And Sydney FC, they've brought Abby Lemon back onto the bench, but for the most part an unchanged starting 11. So, yeah, after Dub Zone's over, I'm sure many people have got multiple devices with that game open, as I actually do on my laptop right now. Sydney FC are 1-0 down. The gauntlet's been thrown down to them. And, hey, if they drop this game, then they can only draw level with Western United on points by winning their games in hand. They would not be able to move outright to the top of the league.
Wow, Canberra's gone ahead.
Now,
tough place to go,
don't forget,
McKellar
you can join me tomorrow, Western Sydney versus Wellington Phoenix, and then the late night game, Perth Glory versus Canberra United, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Both, that's actually against Newcastle, both vitally important.
Huge for the ladder, and I love that on Dub Zone, the Savo, we've seen some big movements on the ladder as well. Thank you so much for joining us at home on Dub Zone. Teo, good to see you as always.
Don't forget, no show due to Cup of Nations next week, so we'll be back on the 26th for Pride Round and the Pride Game.
We certainly will. Bree, lovely to see you as well.
So great to be back here in the studio, everyone. I've enjoyed it.
Teresa, I'm going to let you go because I know you've got a Sydney FC game to quickly get on your device.
It was great today. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us at home as well. We've got a big 10 days coming up. Cup of Nations action. The Matildas in action on Thursday night. You can see them again on Sunday, again the following Wednesday. So we'll miss you next Saturday the 18th. We'll be back with a big show for Pride Round. We're on Sunday night instead. 5 p.m. Dub Zone kickoff. So please join us for that. In the meantime, enjoy the international window and we'll see you soon.